Hello and welcome to the Stream of Chaos. My name is Dave and I will be your keeper of arcane lore for this session of Call of Cthulhu. Today we are beginning our playthrough of, drop something, Regency Cthulhu, which will transport our investigators back to Jane Austen's England, where respectability and etiquette are as important and dangerous as any mythos horror. You could get your own copy of the book from Chaosium.com, and you can find all of our VODs collected over on the Chaosium YouTube channel. We do also stream live each week at 3 p.m. Pacific, Fridays on Twitch, so if you're watching us on YouTube, you can find us here. As always, we pin that time to 10 a.m. Australian. So as we go into another thrilling bout of daylight savings, that'll change. Keeps us on our toes, which is great. I want to give a quick thank you to Roll20 and Sirenscape for being tools which we use to improve our game. And without further ado, let us return to Regency, England. So the setting of this scenario is at a ball. This is the North Lake Summer Ball, the event of the season held in Tarryford, where all of the local gentry and well-to-do people come to hobnob, rub elbows, have a bit of a dance, gossip, and build their reputation, or maybe break it. Where we pick up, it is heading into the afternoon of a gorgeous summer evening. It's a warm wind, and we see a tall white building at the height of a little hill. Surrounding it are dotted trees and farmland in the back where the lesser off people are doing real work. And we can see a little stream of carriages and horses beginning to come up the hill. Standing out the front, there's a number of butlers and maids and things all dressed up in their livery and waiting to receive the esteemed guests. And standing in front of these huge doors are the three members, or at least present members, of the Northlake family. There is Sir James Northlake. He's a very handsome, middle-aged man with perfectly parted hair, a fine suit, and a sort of cane held out in front of him, who holds himself with a sort of like a regal attitude, although there's a kindness behind the eyes. To his side is Lady Lydia Northlake. She's a touch younger and has this beautiful blonde hair that's tightened up and curled under an elegant and wide-brimmed hat, and she has one laced hand delicately placed over her young 16-year-old daughter, Miss Elizabeth Northlake, who is very much the talk of the town at the moment. And as she's only recently come out, which is introduced to society with the intent of ultimately marriage, she is very popular, and a lot of the rumors are going around about, who she may be interested in, who she's been seen dancing with. Perhaps she's had a quiet conversation. I'm going to pass it across to each of our investigators to introduce yourselves as you arrive at the ball, and a couple of things to keep in context. Are you traveling by yourself? By what means do you arrive? Are you a carriage driver, or do you ride sort of daringly on a horseback, which would very much be the talk of the town? How are you dressed? Are you comfortable in this sort of scene? Are you looking around nervously? What does everyone think? Why don't we start first with probably the most comfortable in the area, which is going to be the two Wentworth sisters. I might have you introduce yourselves together. We'll do a team shot. What do you say? Pass it off to James and Alex.
Absolutely.
Drum
Well,
roll,
Jim,
please.
as the elder sister, you get to go first.
Okay, that makes sense. Hello, yes, I am James. I'm going to be playing Georgina Wentworth. I am a sensible older sister, which I feel like I always have been deep down inside. No, I am shamefully almost 21, which means I've given up on love. I'm never really going to make it. I've passed the age, and my parents, in desperation, we are from the Wentworth family, are gentry. They have gone off to distant Holland, where they are finding me a foreign suitor so that I can be quietly married away. And it's kind of my last months out about on the town. I am a relatively kind of bookish, I suppose you would say, woman. I'm very into the sciences and reading. I would probably be a fantastic academic if the times were more progressive and I was allowed to pursue that.
Which they are not, and you cannot.
They are not. So I'm probably going to go and marry a Dutch guy, which cool. I guess that's also fun. And I care deeply for my younger sister.
as the younger sister, I will be playing Miss where am I? Miss Emma Wentworth, who is 17 years old and would have liked to have been out in society a little bit earlier, but it's not something she was able to do until this exact moment. So this is my first time at a ball, and I'm very, very excited to be here. Spent pretty much, well, publicly, I'll tell people it was all day getting ready, but it was actually a day and a half. I started getting ready yesterday. With the colors, nobody's seen me yesterday because I had my hair in colors the whole day. Wearing the brightest possible silk dress. Very. We've got a comment from Mark Staff in there. Looking forward to fashion stats. Well, I've got 50 in fashion, baby. Yeah. I'm looking good.
Hell yeah. We'll probably get you to have a roll. We won't do it just yet, but we'll definitely do it as you arrive.
Wouldn't it be funny if I bombed that?
By the way, carriage. We're talking carriage here.
Oh, carriage. We are carriage
hired. It's the whole bit. Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to ask.
And I'm not really like sitting in the carriage. I'm like kind of like hovering. I've been like hovering over the seat because I don't want to like I don't want to crinkle my dress at all.
Yeah, gotta arrive pristine. So yeah, the Wentworths are you're landed gentry. You're sort of known in the area. You're quite popular. And although you're sort of a bit older, your family hasn't had much of a presence recently. Your parents are currently traveling, and you've been sent back home as like an effort to introduce Emma to society and possibly seek out marriage. While your parents are away, you've kind of got the run of the house. Miss Georgiana, you're taking control of like managing the household and everything and keeping your younger sister in line. And as the two of you are the first to arrive, or at least of the investigators in this like sleek carriage, you would probably come with some attendants as well, who are, actually driving the vehicle, and the two of you can sit in the back. As they step out, one can take your hand and lead you each down, and each of you will be introduced to the North Lakes. Although you've met them previously, they will call out, introducing Miss Georgiana Wentworth and the younger Miss Emma Wentworth. You sort of skirt forward, and the North Lakes receive you. Sir James gives you a sort of bowing nod, and his wife smiles at you and steps forward to sort of like gracefully take your arm and then lead you inward. And Miss Elizabeth, who you actually knew when you were younger, you guys were like childhood friends. Georgiana, you would have been 4 years her senior. So you were probably never as close as Emma was, but you used to run around the halls with her and things. It's probably been like 8 years or so since you've seen her, and she's definitely, grown in that time, as have both of you. There's a little bit of shyness there, and that friendship hasn't immediately reasserted yet. You're definitely treating each other quite formally, but you can see her sort of looking at you and maybe trying to read, like, which way is this gonna go? Are we back to being friends, or are things a little awkward since it's been so long since we were together?
May I ask?
I will. But as we go through and we're shaking everyone's hands, then I will be last. But when I get there with my old friend Elizabeth, I will absolutely comment on how beautiful her dress is and a perfect color choice for her complexion, and she looks absolutely stunning. Just like basically just being like, yes, we good, fam.
She beams and squeezes your hands just a little tighter. She takes in your curls and how much time you've spent on your dress and leans in and says, "You look positively beautiful. You're so stunning. Come with me." And she'll take your hand and lead you into the open hall, where you can see already beautiful light spread out, butlers dancing between crowds with canapes and drinks to be shared. And in the rear, this beautiful large ballroom, which is just now being cleared, and a band towards the back is beginning to strike up. The main event of the evening will, of course, be the dancing. Jim, did you want to clarify something for Miss Georgiana?
I was going to ask if we kept in correspondence, but I think we probably didn't.
I think up to you.
More to the point. I think maybe tried but didn't go through.
Yeah.
I will follow after my sister, and in my head the countdown starts until I'm allowed to start snacking on those stuffed olives. There's a polite window before I can.
There is. It's really specific too. It's 1 lap around the ballroom, 2 short conversations, and then
get me in olives. So I keep doing circuits.
Fantastic. All right, we leave the Wentworth sisters as they head inside, and let's meet our next investigator. How about the local vicar, Reverend Samuel Jennings? Art.
Hello, I'm Art. I will be playing Reverend Samuel Jennings of Bungford, or more I suppose, preferably known by the gentry who have so delightfully decided to patronize my small establishment up at Tarringford.
Yes.
Tarryford. So I'm the Reverend Samuel Jennings. Mr. Jennings, this is fine. Quiet man in his late 30s, has a very pleasant demeanor, but you can see that there is like something underneath that is stopping it from being anything other than sort of just generally pleasant. He does not seem to be the kind of person who effuses joy. There's something else underneath there, but he will arrive. He does arrive in a carriage. It is one of the like I suppose, for better want of a term, like a hired carriage. He would not keep one himself. That is not appropriate for someone who is part, like, is, you know, a member of the church. But it is quite a nice carriage for hire. It's not post. He doesn't arrive with post. We were at this time of night. No. But it is like, single horse. I would say probably it's not open top, but it is open front facing. So It's one with like a small canopy, but nothing. It's not entirely enclosed. He's dressed in essentially the same clothes that he would be dressed in for giving sermons. It is pretty common that your what is the word I'm looking for? People of the church. Why can I not find words today?
Church people.
Clergy, thank you, yes. Members of the clergy. Just very neat, tidy, well-made, but not particularly ostentatious, black, like, coat, waistcoat, like high-necked, high-collared shirt, black pants, black shoes with buckle, and a sort of like large round hat. And he will carry with him a very well-worn Bible. A leather-bound Bible, which he takes with him almost everywhere, and a small like walking cane, of which pretty much everyone has one, and will, with the intention of leaving the hat, the cane, and potentially the Bible, depending on how this evening goes, with the staff for checking.
Bible's off, big night. Get on the olives.
More like, if he can't just have a Bible if he's going to try and dance with people, so it's that sort of thing.
God's not looking.
No, God's always looking. Yeah. The Bible is irrelevant. It just matters to me.
That's cute. Yeah. So is it a little bit like Reverend Jennings doesn't quite know how the evening is going to go yet? Are you wearing your pastor hat, or is it going to be the like social presence?
I mean, he's gotten I think it's like flowers for the shoe buckles. Like, there's a specific thing that they get to, like, or ribbons for your shoe buckles or something like that. Like, he's made an attempt to be very well presented. His shoe buckles are shined and polished. He's very crisply dressed. He's got his little white cravat that serves in place of like the Catholic like little thing. The little dog collar, which they don't do in non-Catholic spaces, which we are not. But he's like, he doesn't seem overawed by the situation, but he certainly is. It's not comfortable, but it is not, oh my god, what am I doing here?
Yeah. It's still finding your space. So as your carriage arrives, and although you don't have your own attendants, one of North Lake's butlers will step forward, open the door for you, and you can step out into the area and take in the home. You've probably been here before at some point as a personal guest. You know the North Lakes fairly well. They were actually the ones
I've been invited to dine a few times, which is
that's
very
exactly
kind
it.
of them to include me.
They were the ones that kind of made your chapel the chapel in the area. There's actually a second one in Tarryford itself, which is no longer attended by many of the gentry, as the North Lakes, being the sort of the largest and most important family in the area, have migrated to your service. Many others have followed suit. And as you step out and begin to walk forward, James actually sort of takes a step down and meets you halfway down the stairs in sort of like a gesture of a closer friendship than just purely like acquaintances. And as you are introduced by the butler as the Reverend Samuel Jennings, Sir James takes your hand, shakes it, and says, "It's a real pleasure to have you here, Reverend. I'm so grateful you came."
Thank you, Sir James. I deeply appreciate yours and Lady Northlake's invitation this evening. I'm very much looking forward to enjoying your fine hospitality, and I know that the Lord as well is shining down upon this wonderful afternoon and evening you've put together for us. Thank you, Sir James. I do not take up a lot of his time, but I do because he is far and away above me in status, but I do my best to express the honor of the time and the action that is taken in being so friendly. It is well and truly, he is a genteel man with excellent manners, and I speak his praises whenever I have the chance to, in my quiet way. I'm very effusive of praise of Lord and Lady Northlake.
Lady Northlake also steps in and takes your arm and says somewhat conspiratorial, and also perhaps a dance or two. We have many unattended women this evening, and if I might make introductions, I'd be ever so pleased.
There is a slight rise of color in the Reverend's cheeks, and sort of like he lowers, like nods a little and goes, "Lady Northlake, while I am not much of a dancer, if you would have me dance this evening, I would be more than happy to oblige with the right introductions."
Oh, then
I would be delighted.
Then oblige you shall. We'll see you dancing soon. And she escort you, sort of turns around and almost like spins you off and into the main hall.
This man is not good at hiding anything about himself, so she's fully aware of just how truly embarrassed he is at the concept of dancing. But is like, he is doing his best to be like, "If you insist, I'll fucking do it."
You get the impression she a little bit delights in your discomfort, not in a malicious way, but in a like friendly banter kind of a way. Yeah.
Hence, like, there are instances where perhaps the Reverend would say, "Oh, it is not appropriate for my position to be, seen to be dancing at such events." However, for the lady, I also am aware in that way of being like, "Yes, I know that she likes making me uncomfortable, but she's a lovely human being."
And this is
yes,
just
of course.
how it goes. Miss Elizabeth treats you quite formally. She is very much like it's all about like presentation, and whenever she's in church, she's like seated at the front, arms crossed, reads the Bible, has a little sing, off she goes to school. And she sees you very much as a figure to respect. She does not see you as a friend, not in a nasty way, just that's how you are. You are a authority figure to her. And she gives you a neat little bow, says, "Good evening, Reverend Jennings. So pleased that you could make it," and doesn't really make much more conversation as you can step in.
I will say hello to Miss Northlake and comment that she looks exceedingly well this evening, and that her attire is very fine, and she is essentially like an appropriate way of saying you look very beautiful this evening in a
Yeah, she thanks you and comments on the shine of your buckles as well. Before you can step inside, just as
I get the feeling that because she's 16, and for context, I said like I'm 39.
Yeah.
So like, while it is not unreasonable that would be like a marriage that would not be frowned upon, I do feel like in this context, because I have like, because of my relationship with their family, that I probably look at her as more of like a younger sister than I would any kind of marriage
genuinely a member of your
at
flock.
this time.
There's also genuinely a level, no offense, of they're above you. Like there's no chance of the North
no matter
Lakes
how
marrying.
Which I think is why he finds it quite acceptable to say you look very beautiful this evening, because there is in no way, shape, or form it could be taken as anything other than an appropriate comment on the effort of a lady, the effort a lady has made on her attire and presentation for the evening.
100%.
Also, thank you, Lady Cater. I have read a lot of Jane Austen. If I can't nail this character, I'm in trouble.
That's what the homework was for. Fantastic. So as the Reverend is turned inside to brave the ball, we meet our final investigator, the daring Jackson.
Hey, I'm Jackson, and I'm playing Captain John Stone, 95th Regiment of Foot Rifles of the Light Division. Recently returned from the Battle of Victoria, the Peninsular
Which
War, and the
one?
ongoing struggle against the rat Napoleon.
Hello. I can
hear
fix
you.
him.
I can fix it immediately. I love him. And is this a classic has Jackson frozen or is he doing a bit?
Oh,
can make
you
him
never know.
worse.
We'll never know. Fantastic. Captain John Stone, how'd you arrive and how are you presented?
Do you know, I think he's just come back from the war. He's turned into a little bit of a local celebrity. I think he would very much have preferred to just kind of wander in through the front door. But perhaps Lord and Lady Northlake insisted upon, like, gave him the wrong time, made sure he'd arrive 10 minutes fashionably late, and insisted he rode up on a warhorse.
Hell
It was
yes.
like this big clattering of hooves outside, and even though he didn't want to have it happen that way, that is what happens.
Yes, that's amazing. As you're arriving on the horse that they sent for you, this beautiful white charger, what they haven't done for any of the others is clearly some pre-planned scheme. Some of the butlers raise trumpets and give you a little announcement, and it
no.
causes the horse to like rear upwards in this clatter of rocks and dust. And behind the North Lakes, you can see the doors which are ajar, a run of women and a couple of men as well who are quite excited to see the daring soldier begin to gather in the air, and you can already hear a little, "Ooh, he's here, he came, Captain Stone, a hero in our midst. Oh, aren't we terribly delighted?" And the butlers in a big booming voice announce, "Captain John Stone." And there's a little smattering of polite applause as you get the horse back under control and manage to settle it.
They see the horse, they see the uniform. They did not see the war. Perhaps they would not be so quick to applaud if they knew.
Is this all internal monologue or is this announced?
I don't know. Maybe he
I love
mumbles
it.
it a bit.
I love the idea of Jackson, you playing your first character, which is very noir detective. You're going to monologue internally and then nothing outward. Not a thing gets through.
Every
Yeah.
time, like,
I mean-
the camera swings across, it, like, turns sepia and, like...
Yeah.
Jackson, we know you can do that.
See the stains of blood spreading.
Give him a
So we
minute.
just, every time it's
Give him a
internal
minute.
monologue, we need black and white only. Yep. Yeah.
There he
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
We're all playing in color. Jackson's playing in black and white. Amazing. So, Captain Stone, you handled yourself remarkably in war, and you've returned. Quite the hero. You were injured, and you've been recovering for some time. Might I ask what your injury, or is that a little rude?
I think a broken jaw. That's why
Ooh.
he speaks like this in as little as possible.
Oh, that's amazing. It's just such a, yeah. Fantastic. You get
Very
the horse
cool.
under control, slide yourself to the ground with practice. You're
That's it.
you're an accomplished rider and soldier, and step forward.
And even though he doesn't, ascribe to theatrics, I think he would have like scrubbed up nice. He's freshly shaven and he's got his dress uniform on. But yes, the only thing he can't scrub off is what he's seen.
I didn't do this for any of the others, but as you approach, well, first of all, I'm gonna say, so James treats you with respect, not reverence, but he's very polite. He says, Captain Stone, an honor to meet you in person. I heard you behaved remarkably in the war effort and brought honor and duty to not only your country but to Tarryford. Consider my invitation to my house extended for the evening, and I do hope you will find the event enjoyable and perhaps some rest. His wife also greets you very politely, and the young Miss Elizabeth holds you with a little bit of awe. There's a little bit of like here's a hero figure, and you're quite a bit. Are you a tall man?
Yeah, a bit above average, bit
Yeah.
imposing. Why not?
I think you've kind of got like, and also like in your like military uniform, and you're also probably one of the only people at this event that's carrying a weapon with your saber, like
Ooh,
dress
that's
saber
true.
slid at your side. She definitely looks up at you with a little bit of like stars in her eyes as she sees you, and then curtsies towards you and introduces herself. Captain Stone, I'm going to ask you to make an etiquette roll here because this isn't quite your speed. You're the only one that's been kind of promoted into this circle rather than having existed in it for a time.
You give me the first roll of the campaign.
I am Jackson. James.
Okay, let's see. Oh, surprising even me.
Yeah, so how do you think you handle it?
Fine. You know, I don't think he really knows what to do in these kinds of situations, but given his jaw and given his predisposition, he just ends up fortunately landing on the polite, reserved, conservative side by accident.
Yeah. You've been
And just like nods at the right time and says the right words and not much more.
you were possibly, I mean, you're used to speaking to like commanding officers and things, and you can kind of
That's
carry that
it.
through. You definitely, you know that these people are, you know, your superiors in this event, and you're not going to find comrades here. These are people to be treated with respect, and you get through at the minimum, and then find yourself escorted inside. As you go, it's very much an all eyes on you kind of situation. Yours was probably the largest announcement at the party, and immediately people part from you. Now, in this period, you can't just go up and kind of talk to anyone. You have to be introduced. You're not allowed to make acquaintances yourself. You have to have someone you know step forward and make that connection. And for Captain Stone, you actually don't know that many people in Tarryford. You know the Dr. Parson and his wife who have helped to treat you, and you know the local Reverend Byron Choke. This is not our investigator, Reverend Jennings. This is the Reverend of the Tarryford town, who you have attended his service a couple of times. So, although you know the North Lakes now, they're not going to be doing many introductions, at least not immediately. So there's this kind of strange bubble that forms around the captain as he steps into the wider room, and people step back, all clearly sort of looking at him, all eager to talk, to ask him for, you know, stories of adventure, to understand what it was like out there at the front and how has he found the return to Tarryford. But none of them can, not yet at least, and they're sort of beginning to look around and hope that someone might know him so that they can step forward and receive that
Yes, indeed.
coveted introduction.
Well, I do know Dr. Parsons.
That's right.
Who's been helping me with my recovery, and I also know, yes, as you mentioned,
Reverend
Byron Choke.
Byron Choke. So we're gonna step out here and get a sense for what our 4 investigators are doing as they take in the evening. I also, Emma, did you want to take a little risk with your fashion tonight? Do you want to try to sort of push the bounds, or do you want to play it safe? Basically, there's a chance to make a fashion roll to possibly, you know, stake your reputation, maybe see a little improvement. But if you fail here, you've overstepped, you've been away for a while, you don't really have a sense for how things are going in Tarryford. Yeah? Yeah.
I think so.
Hell yeah.
I think that I want to do that. It'd be funny if I bomb it.
Yeah, it would. All right, do you want to go ahead and give us a fashion roll?
I sure do. The character sheet is doing
I
a
mean, if
slow
you do
load
bomb
today.
this and Elizabeth Northlake was still incredibly kind, that's how you know you're still friends.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, where she's like,
exactly.
oh, you tried and this is...
Or it's as you walk away, you see her turn and make a snide remark to someone else that was
They're
there.
like, not friends anymore, foes.
Enemy.
My character sheet is loading so slowly. There we
Not
go.
happy? There you go. Ooh. Right on the nose.
Right on the money.
What do you think you're doing in this segment? What do you think you've changed up? Kind of make a bit of a scene.
Oh, the colors of the era were, a lot of them were quite muted in you know, muslins and silks, and I've gone bright. Like I've sourced the brightest yellow silk fabric that I could possibly find. Instead of doing like accents of it with another color, I'm like, we yellow. We're yellow. It's yellow. And then I've got
Monochrome.
accents of like a really like dark, like almost midnight blue. So I don't have any neutral colors. I've got these like beautiful, bright, vibrant, dark jewel tones that are hard to find, expensive. And this is like a year and a half in the making, this dress. Like started planning this one is when the trip to secure a husband for my sister was even mentioned. I was like, ooh, we're going to start working on that dress now. So all of my other clothes are lovely and nice, and I can put them together beautifully, but this dress is like a whole thing.
This is the dress, and this is the night to wear it.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, with that, Alex, you can go ahead and increase your reputation by 1 point, as immediately rumors begin to spread, eyes turn, and a new trend possibly takes Tarryford. So we're flagging, in Regency Cthulhu, there's a couple of new skills that are introduced to the game. Reputation is actually an optional one, but I think it's absolutely the best of the bunch. It is a calculation based on your credit rating and your etiquette, how well you handle yourselves in social situations. And it is like sanity, like hit points, something that can ebb and flow. It will increase or decrease over the course of a campaign. And if you find yourself in sort of like dangerous situations, not even dangerous situations, like if you find yourself like speaking with the other sex without a chaperone, that will tank your reputation, and as that gets lower, you will find yourself not invited to places. You'll find doors closed to you. It's just as important as your sanity or Cthulhu mythos, and sort of holding yourself well and trying to sort of increase that reputation is very much what the mundane characters are trying to do in any given scenario.
I'll be honest, I totally forgot we were playing Call of Cthulhu. I was just like idly into, oh yeah, this is a going to parties, trying to get married role-playing game.
Yeah,
of course.
it absolutely is. Yeah, when I said you had a sword, that wasn't like good a weapon. That was like cool, a statement, fashion piece.
Looks nice.
Amazing.
Swish.
I'm looking good. All right, so I'll give a little context for the North Lake Hall, which is the host of this fine event, and then I'll pass it to you to see what you all want to do before the main event of the evening, which will be the dance, the ball. So there's this set of main halls, and with large sweeping stairs that head up to the second level. It is not locked, but it will be very much known to you that only family and staff will be going upstairs, or close friends under escort of family. So if you just start striding up those stairs, that's a no-no. That's a reputation tank. Off towards the left, you will find a parlor where drinks are being hosted, and a large and beautiful library where a few select guests are thumbing through pages of books and taking in the North Lake's incredible collection. And off towards the right, there is a smaller parlor where tables have been set out, and although they are not started yet, games will be played, sort of cards and maybe some dice, things like that. A chance to have a tipple, have a chat, and have a bit of a gossip maybe. And then through two huge doors is the magnificent ballroom. It's encased in marble across the grounds, huge, beautiful columns and a twinkling chandelier at its height. Towards the back is a raised stage on which an immense and sort of beautifully dressed band is striking up a more casual song as people begin to filter in and sort of find their ways around the corners. There's tables set out with food and drinks and things, and in a short time, this is where the main event will be held. I think it's just crazy that the people at this time basically dedicated the largest room in their house to hosting a ball twice a year. I guess in other days they just close it up and try and keep the dust off it, but that's the period.
Where they keep the balls.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Is this ballroom, sorry, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
because you've said like the upper floor of the main area is off limits. Is this the kind of estate house that has like a mezzanine for people to watch the dances as they're happening, or is it more like people are sitting around the edges of the dance, standing and sitting around? Like, do we have a peanut gallery or no?
Great call, love that. So yes, it's an open one. It goes up 2 levels, and looking at the map, which let's show. That's what we've got the thing for. Looking at the map. On the upper floor, it is open, so that balcony can look down into the ballroom. I might walk back what I said about it being closed off. I think once the ball begins, I think they're going to open up those stairs and balcony so that guests not looking to dance at the moment can sort of stand, observe, have drinks and things. And I will say that they've put like soft barriers in front of like the crossway to the bedrooms and the main bedroom and things like that.
It would just be known that like you do not pass. Yeah. You know, you don't go any further away than the balcony. Like you literally are just There's probably a couple of like butlers just kind of standing there to direct people if they need to use the facility.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and there are staff constantly at hand, always, just behind you, 2 steps away, carrying a drink or whatever you should need to make sure that your glasses stay filled and your stomachs well provisioned. They've got Miss Georgiana's olive rotation. What would the 4 of you like to do? Now, some of you do have a couple of people that you already know here that you might be able to find, and they can make further introductions. You also were given a handout at the beginning of the scenario which details some of the other people that are in the area. So you might have a little bit of a hit list. You might be like, I want to make this is the introduction. I want to meet as many people as I can and kind of build up that what's it called? No, index, catalog.
Address book?
Yeah.
There's a word for it. I forget.
List?
Rolodex.
I was muted. Damn it! I would have sounded so smart.
Yeah, build up that Rolodex.
Little black book.
You have about an hour or so before the dancing.
Well, since I'm here, suppose I might as well find a wife.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
That's what Captain Stone is thinking. He's just not sure if he wants to go back to the army or not, because we pretty much liberated Spain. He's probably on his way out. Maybe the recovery from the injury is going to take a while. If he happens to find a wife, maybe that'll send him into retirement.
Yeah.
But if one comes along. So yes, if the Reverend or the Doctor can give me a tour
Absolutely.
of the eligible bachelorettes, that'd be fine.
So you can seek out of your 2 choices. You probably got Dr. Parsons along with his wife, Miss Parsons. Dr. Parsons you found to be a very capable surgeon. He's helped you out, and he's probably the one you know better. He's he's also, his wife especially, although he as well, they are looking to climb ladders, and they are probably looking to use you a little bit in doing that. When they found out that you were also invited, they were very much like, oh, you will come, won't you? You must say hello to us when they're there, and we'll introduce you around. We know many people. We've been here for some time, and please do seek us out. So they'd be very eager for it. Reverend Choke, on the other hand, you met in the context of one Sunday early on when you were coming back. You were still feeling a little unwell, your jaw broken and completely unable to talk at the time. You found the local church and stepped inside on a Sunday and found it oddly quiet. You could see the dust motes filtering through the air. The pews were not barren, but only half filled with what are very much the more common folk of the area. None of the gentry present sort of slid into one of the seats at the back and saw this massive, burly man with a huge, staff that's probably it's very thick, almost like a post that he holds in front of him, who proceeded to basically torment all the people here for not being better than they already are, and rouse about how they must work harder so that the gentry of the area can return, and they must rally themselves to benefit Tarryford. Then he had a bit of a reign on about the Bungford Chapel, where that charlatan Reverend Jennings continues to maintain his ruse of stealing and corrupting the good folk of the area. Pretty harsh words. And when he met you, very much took you closely and sort of looked to you as a peer, although you might not look to him as one. He tried to kind of connect with you as a man's man, someone who gets things done. He also would be very eager to see you. But yeah, up to you.
That's okay. I mean, you've pitched it pretty hard. I think Dr. and Mrs. Parsons are the way to go, because if they've been helping me, I want to help them.
Yeah, fantastic. Jim?
I just have a little question for us, a stylistic thing, without implying my whole Napoleonic War nerd kind of aspect onto this, because I could see it going both ways just from pure style. Is this as if the captain went out sort of, and for example, because Regency is a little different than regular Call of Cthulhu, we can't just go talk to people, and chatted with the staff of the house, would he be able to find other soldiers, or is this a situation where it's just really the professional army? I could see both working historically. I'm just wondering stylistically.
As in, are there other people that might have served?
Specifically, I'm just specifically, I'm wondering if he would have a kinship with the staff that kind of is somewhat separate to.
what I will say is that, Stone, you are probably the closest to crossing that gap. That or Reverend Jennings, who has some of them in his flock, possibly. You probably came from not great wealth, and you're not landed yourself. You might see some of them as peers. No one else here would be an officer. Anyone here who served in the staff would have been just, foot soldiers and things.
I think I'm one of the rare folks who jumped class by getting a title, but getting a rank in the army, officer rank.
Someone, if you couldn't have afforded to do it yourself, someone would have had to have bought your officership. You had to
really?
spend money
That's cool.
to get someone would have sponsored you so that you could join the officer class. It's why most of the gentry were officers, because they essentially bought that for their sons. Essentially helping to fund the army. If you do not have money to buy an officership, you are not an officer. So
you must have impressed someone, or
Maybe
you can say that
impress
your
someone else in the army.
Yeah.
or your family did just have enough money to get you. You didn't have to necessarily be really wealthy, but just enough to get you an officership so that you could ascend in society.
I enlisted as a youngest son. And that's different from receiving a commission. So
Yeah, actually
did
enlisted.
enlist and worked my way up, I think. I don't know. More research required.
I think it's up to you.
that's-
You're free to decide which way you want to go. You would possibly find some other people that served here, no other officers. Although there's probably a couple of the other gentlemen here that were in war at some point or another. It might look at you.
I just think it's really interesting thinking which investigators might be able to do the, Downton Abbey, be in the ballroom scene and in the,
be under the
the
stairs.
kitchen scene.
There's a great pop-out box in this book which says, because basically it's the bulk of this campaign and of the content here is play gentry, go and do Pride and Prejudice stuff. But there's a little pop-out that's for the Under the Stairs campaign, which is basically when you play as staff and things like that, and how you can, because they're so invisible. In this scenario, I'm not even gonna name stuff because it's so you would barely be oh, I wonder if there's staff in the room. You don't fucking care. Of course they're there. They're there to bring you grapes.
You just see the glasses and the trays.
Yeah,
floating through the
exactly.
air.
You're not the people holding them. Yeah, awesome. All right, so yeah, you can begin to find your way looking through for Dr. Parsons. Walking from room to room, you eventually come to the large library where you can see a familiar sort of salt and pepper haired person leaning against the back wall, holding a book that he's thumbing through and then returning to one of the shelves and musing along with it. His wife, nearby, Mrs. Abigail Parsons, is in tight-knit discussion with a group of other women and very animatedly discussing something. As you approach, can I actually get you to... Do you have... I'm thinking either psychology or etiquette or something that would give you a sense of where these people stand in this reputation battle.
Yeah, I've got a great credit rating, but that seems to be somewhat supplanted in this world.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have an etiquette skill?
I have etiquette. I have a little bit of
Etiquette works,
but
although
I've just
psychology
proved
for just how they're handling themselves.
terrible psychology. I can
Praise.
I can shoot someone,
I think
but
etiquette
not
works.
know how they feel about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just started blasting.
Oh my god. How did you just start?
Done surprisingly well so
Nice.
far.
This is the battlefield you were built for. Okay. You can see that Dr. Parsons honestly looks a little bored. He's probably waiting for the games or the dancing to begin or something. He's not really here to rub elbows and try and ascend. His wife, on the other hand, you actually can see it's not a comfortable circle of conversation. It's a group of friends, and then she's a little on the outside and has kind of gotten a bit of velocity and jammed herself into the conversation. And she's made a couple of she's just off the cuff said whatever she can. It's a bit controversial, a bit interesting to get a little attention. And now she's defending the stance, and the people around her doing a little bit of okay, I'm not really sure hats are meant to be worn that way, but if you insist, and she seems like she's really trying to get herself in there. You're free to introduce yourself to you.
Yes, I would like to rescue Mrs. Parsons if I can. Show her some kindness.
Yeah. You step.
So I can walk up to her and say hello.
Yes,
That's
you can.
Fine.
You very much
But
can.
no one else.
That's right. You
No
do not
one
know.
else.
You do not know these other people.
What other people?
Well, as you step up, she's just saying, well, it's just simply a matter of ambition. One needs to force oneself in to try and roll the dice and ascend through ranks. It's simply what must be done. And there's like sort of an
Mrs.
awkward silence.
Parsons, you seem to be speaking my language, as it were. I do know something about rising up through ranks with ambition in mind.
Yes. Well,
And good
here's the man himself. I shouldn't. How kind to see you, Captain Stone. She takes your hand and bows, and then steps forward and says, "Might I introduce you to some of my friends? Ladies, this is the Honorable Captain Stone, who I have had the personal honor of dining with several times, and also is a close friend and a patient of my honorable husband." Ladies, and then she introduced you to, is Mrs. Chandra, no, sorry, that's me here. There is Mrs. Marianne Potterton, who is a 24-year-old woman who looks a little older than she appears. She's dressed in slightly muted clothes and has a slight air of sadness about her. There is also, there is Mrs. Chandra Asher, who is, you have not seen in, actually you probably would have seen in church, but have not been introduced to. She is an Indian woman who is married to one of the other more wealthy people in the area. She's dressed very modestly, like almost getting close to nun garb, although there's just a peak of lace around the frills of her clothing. Both turn and make your acquaintance. There's also another scattering of people, but we don't care about them. They both bow and make your acquaintance, and Mrs. Asher says, "Captain Stone, I hear you made quite the name for yourself at the front."
Well, other people make names for others. I simply do what I am asked, no matter what scars leaves me with.
I see. Well, Arson, it's quite the interesting friend you have. He's a
Yes.
conversationalist.
He has shown me much kindness since I have been back.
Mrs. Parsons. Yes. Well, why don't we take the room? Captain Stone?
Please, by all means.
She takes your arm, and as you wheel about, she turns. She says, "Nasty women, they're all, scraping and clawing, trying to get their ways up, get their hands in my husband's good books. He knows a great many people in this town. He's very successful, and truthfully, I think we ought to be received a little more frequently at functions like this. I mean, who would you go to see if you were wounded? I mean, you sought him out, didn't you?"
Quite right, Mrs. Parsons. The medical practice is a most honourable one. And
Yes.
I am sorry to hear that some of your friends have not yet had the misfortune of learning just how important it is.
Oh no. Well, we wouldn't wish pain on them, or no, it wouldn't do to wish injury on another. No. So tell me, Captain Stone. I'm glad you came, but I do wonder what your aims are tonight. Are you simply here to sample the canapes and perhaps have a twirl around the floor?
Well, to tell the truth, Lord and Lady Northlake were quite insistent on me having an appearance, and I thought, since that decision was made for me, at the very least, I should begin to know the eligible young ladies of the area. As a matter of politeness, you understand, of course.
Well, Captain Stone, I'm sure I can be a friend to you here. If you'll come with me, I might be able to introduce you to a few other women.
Very good.
Excellent. Tell me, Are you wealthy? Did you secure a secure pension coming back from the front?
Yes, I suppose my needs will be well met. I do not have. I think I probably don't have land or a significant fortune waiting for me anywhere else, but my commission offers me a certain level of security.
Tremendous. Well, nothing
he's actually
quite
getting
so
a bit-
wrong.
I think Kevin's actually getting a bit nervous. He wasn't prepared for all these questions. He thought it'd
They're
just be
also-
a show up and like here's the ladies, which one, point, and then like there's a routine and then it's all done. He's getting a bit nervous.
Captain Stone's also possibly not fully aware of how quite inappropriate Mrs. Parsons is being. And she's being way
not at
too
all.
blunt and friendly with you, but she's
okay.
probably taking a little bit of advantage of your, a little bit unfamiliar, and she's definitely using you to wheel and deal. She pats you by the arm and will begin to skirt you from room to room, introducing you to some of the women as she finds them. Let's understand where all of our other characters are, because we might have one of our first crossovers soon. What's everyone else doing?
Oh,
I might jump in quickly because I think
Yeah.
I'm kind of I'm circuiting a little bit. I think that as we've established, I haven't quite mastered the whole social arts thing. I'm pretty good at talking to people one-on-one, but I'm not exactly a charmer.
Yeah.
I think that I've found my suitable etiquette. I found the role that I play in this society by basically helping being a social lubricant. So I am one of the people. I'm basically doing circuits, and I'm finding people who are hovering near each other waiting to be introduced and serving as that link. I'm kind of playing as a sort of safe person,
Yeah.
someone who is just getting the wheels of the social gathering turning. I think secretly, I've probably been, as a bookworm, I've probably been reading a lot of books on piano recently. I've got like 25 points in it, and I'm eyeing a grand piano in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
I'm definitely not good enough to play, but I've been reading about it so much. I've been learning a piece that's way above my ability, and I kind of just want to show off the first movement because I kind of got that down sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is Georgiana on the old, I guess, social scale? Like, how do you do in casual, light conversation?
I think that I am pretty good when it's very rules driven. So I've got okay etiquette. I can do the this, the that, and I've got pretty decent persuade. So I can actually appeal to people, but I'm not really a schmoozer. I'm not really a schemer. Haven't got that charm, that fast talk to back things up. A little shy, I guess.
Yeah, but what you do have is genuinely a breadth of intelligence and quite a wide knowledge on interesting things, and that's very much the name of the game here. People are going around in conversations and they're finding chances to show off. They're like, oh, you guys are talking about religion? Well, I know a lot about history, so we're going to take the shortest hop into my subject we can, and I'm going to tell you facts until you're impressed with me. So you can kind of dance between these conversations and try and, bandy around information. Of course, there's always the risk of going too far and appearing a bore, and James, we wouldn't want to be a bore.
I really like that. I think that that's something I might work my way into because I think that I've probably been a bore a lot. I get the impression that I'm really enthusiastic about the things that I'm studying, so I can really just go at people. And as a result, I've clamped down on that impulse so much that I come across as a little thing. Maybe if I was more willing to, I might get some of that reputation point. I think at this stage, I'm doing like if it was sort of an activity, I think I'm doing a general etiquette role, kind of just going through, doing the introductions, doing the hello, how are you, yes, stuff in my face.
Only other thing I'll probably say is you are here as your younger sister's chaperone. And you kind of need to make sure she doesn't try and do anything unbecoming of her, because that would look poorly on you and your family as well. So probably keeping a little eye on. And also, if you're trying to arrange a marriage for her, that might be, begin to see who the eligible bachelors are. Are you happy to trust her with that?
I think that in my head, I'm interested to hear what you think, Alex, but in my head, I think I came in, I had all these plans for how I was going to address it, and you fired off because you're so much better at this scene than me. And actually,
100%.
I'm sort of feeling a little like, oh, what do I do here? No, I don't need to worry about her. I need to keep my own head on straight because I'm not a native to this scene.
Oh yeah, and the thing with Emma is that Emma has. I feel like with Georgiana, like sometimes in this era, men may not appreciate when you say things they did not know. You may come across as smarter than them. Emma never has that problem, but men just fight. Like, she's pretty.
Yeah.
Kind of boring. Other women love her. Like this, she's like will easily hold court in a group of women of similar age, talking fashion, talking trends and styles, and you know, you've only got last season's waistline. Okay, well, this is what you can do at home for like minimal cost to just like their like, waistlines are rising at this point. Where are we in Regency era?
1813.
Okay.
Early.
Yeah, waistlines are still creeping up. They're still creeping up here. We're still getting towards
Yeah, I was just about to
the
be like,
real
is it-
underbust one.
Is it the fashionable women who've got the Empire lines, but not everyone else
There is
yet? Like
there is
how...
an Empire line through the whole era, but it goes up and then it comes right back down again at a particular point, and it's to do with the war. It's to do with wars in you. But at the moment, Empire lines are still creeping right up. So you know what? If you've got last seasons and it's still like a little bit too low or it's a little bit out of fashion here, don't ditch the whole dress because, you know, these things are constantly changing. But what you can do is you can just take a little tuck. And we're also getting into like a period where we're starting to embellish the hems and the sleeves a lot more. So if you've taken the Empire line right up under the bust here, you can just add a little bit of a flourish to the hem of the skirt to keep the length. So just put some like little Victorian, like Gothic kind of rolls in there. So get some Gothic ruffles around the edge of your hem to maintain the length after you put. So she is just,
Yeah,
she's in a group of like
in her element.
most of the women.
So I think, Georgiana, as you sort of consider, you know, going around to make some acquaintances, you see your younger sister standing there in this beautiful yellow dress, giving a little twirl, and all the women are sort of gasping and leaning forward and taking little samples of it. You can also see a number of the younger men sort of casting eyes sideways and beginning to plot their moves. For as soon as those dance cards come out, maybe she looks like she's doing pretty well.
A fact bubbles to my head about going and trying to come into the conversation, talking about this brand new invention, a sewing machine, don't you know? But then I clamp down on it, and I go back. I keep drifting.
Gorgeous.
In
All
any
right.
other era, the two of us would be starting a hell of a fashion house.
Hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Jim, did you want to give me a general etiquette roll then? For just basically, you're just trying not to make any waves. You're being the lubricant. You're kind of being a little bit.
I would love to do that. I also like to share my ideology and belief because I think it fits very well in this situation.
Yeah.
In my backstory entry, the pre-gen has life isn't going to give me what I want, and that may just have to do. Here is an etiquette roll.
Okay.
Great.
So it's not a fumble, which is where you'd really risk reputation actually falling, but basically you're finding you've been away here for some 5-6 years and you've lost a bit of your mojo. You were originally thinking you'd go around and introduce people, but none of the familiar faces are here. And the few people you kind of half remember, the families, they're looking over you like you don't exist and you're not brazen enough to go forward and try and reinvigorate an old connection. Truthfully, you find yourself a little stranded. And outside of the North Lakes and the Reverend, who you also know because you've been into his service a couple times since you've returned, you really don't know anyone here. You will spot across the other side of the room the Reverend himself, seated in a large, high-backed chair with this huge staff in front of him, sort of glowering around at people. But the rest seem to be kind of avoiding you. For the moment, you can kind of flit in between places, trying not to be too awkward and basically kill time until the main event, but haven't really made any.
I think I'll continue to do that. Going over and talking to the Reverend is a bit too accepting that I'm going to end up in a nunnery, and I'm not quite ready for that yet. There's a Dutch man waiting for me, you'll see.
I swear, he's real, my Dutch boyfriend.
He goes to another country.
Awesome. Well, okay, so we've got Emma. I understand you're kind of entertaining some of the other women and just beginning to kind of reapply yourself.
And I'm focusing a lot on Elizabeth too. Like I'm making sure that, you know, I know that the hosts. This is the host daughter, and she is the talk of the town at the moment. So I'm not like taking attention. I want to be clear. I'm not taking attention away from her. I'm like just kind of like supporting her.
Yeah. It's a two-way thing. She's very much like swept up by the whole event. She's not staying in any conversation for more than a few words, dancing between people, very much kind of soaking in the conversation and twirling from room to room, taking it all in. She does have a couple of brief words with you and sits in on your discussion for a moment.
Seminar.
But before being spirited away once more. Reverend Jennings, where are you placing yourself?
I mean, depending on how quickly the good lady Northlake decides to make good on her threat of introducing me to people.
Well, she'll do that once the dancing commences. If you don't find a partner, she's finding one for you.
Which is fine. I would say that I am just to confirm, because I know Jim, you were saying Georgiana was eyeing up the piano. Would that be in the parlor or the library?
Parlor. The main
yeah.
one. The bigger one. Honestly, they probably got a smaller one in the library as well. And there's one in the ballroom too. And there's a keyboard in the small parlor. Actually, it's one of those little ding, ding, ding. What's that thing called? Xylophone?
I think,
Harpsichord?
yeah, there's one of those in the small parlor.
I think that Jennings doesn't make his way into the ballroom until like it's time for dancing, because it's just he's not big on the dancing. He sort of makes his way probably like almost absent-mindedly in the direction of the library, has a moment that he realizes that he's at a ball and kind of can't disappear into books. That would sort of not be done, and so stops short and enters the parlor just to kind of be seen to be somewhere where there is people, but not somewhere that like the main action is happening. And I think he finds himself, one of the like punch like cups that they have, get something to like pick at, and just sort of stands off sort of to the side, just kind of watching. He's a very attentive person. He cares a lot about the people in his parish. And so as much as this is a social occasion, it's also a chance for him to kind of check in with how everyone's going at sort of a social event, just to kind of see who is perhaps not as engaged socially as they, that it would be expected that they would be, as a way of maybe finding those opportunities to gently pull someone aside during Sunday service and just kind of going, how are you, my child? How are you well? Are things okay for you? Doing his best to really truly take care of the people in his flock. And also truly trying to avoid at all getting pulled into having to dance, but he knows it's coming, so he's just like, if I just ignore it, maybe it won't happen. But at least I'm here. Like, I can't be said to be trying to run away. Yeah, I can't be said to be running away. I'm not with the books, so I can pretend that I'm doing the right thing.
In that case, I think you see it's gonna be Georgiana who's being pulled into a conversation that she doesn't quite understand and might be able to rescue her from. So Georgiana, as you're sort of going from room to room, an older woman, you'd guess somewhere in her 60s or something, dressed in a sort of beautiful rich green gown, has come up to you, takes your hand, and enthusiastically, without introduction, says, "So glad to hear you're married. It sounds like it was a beautiful ceremony. You're away soon, then?"
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I think engaged.
Do I know who this is?
The ceremony just hasn't quite but yes, my parents, I start blustering and kind of spitting out. No, I don't want to contradict this person, but
Oh, he's a fine man, my son. He'll make you happy a long time, and you'll stand to see many fine things in the world. And I just think you're beautiful, and you look effervescent tonight. So sweet.
You too, madam. I start looking around
Can you make
desperately at this
Can you
point.
make an
I think that
intelligence
helped.
roll for me? And Reverend Jennings,
Yeah.
you'll enter.
Absolutely.
Do I know who this is?
You do.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
Fired. Hard success.
You cast your mind back to your early days rushing through the North Lake estate and remember Sir James's mother, the Dowager Lady Emma Northlake. Her husband was died some time ago. And she's the same woman, although she seems to have been aged a bit before her time. You don't remember her being this old, even though it's been quite a few years. You actually remember having quite a few conversations with her. She had a keen mind and a very sharp wit, and she actually inspired some of your love of books and things. She possibly introduced you to a few of them, and maybe even got you started on the piano. It was kind of like one of those like
Sure.
older, you're like, hell yeah, this lady rules. I want to be like you when I grow up.
Yeah.
She seems to be mistaking you for someone else, and is kind of out of it. Seems a little confused. Reverend Jennings, as you see this, she is not frequently in your church service. She doesn't come, but you are aware of Sir James's troubles with his mother. As she has aged prematurely, she has effectively what we would say is dementia. And has kind of begun to lose her focus, drifts, her mind going backwards through time regularly. And you can see her now finding Miss Georgiana and what you believe to be thinking that she is in fact Lady. Yes.
I will approach and sort of kind of insert myself, directing my conversation to the Dowager Lady Emma, Lady Northlake, because I do not know this other young lady, and sort of say, Lady Emma, it is delightful to see you. Why, oh why, are you not dancing, my
Oh,
good woman? You deserve such wonderful times this evening. Did I overhear what was being said? In such a time when when such felicitations are at hand, the wedding and everything, you must tell me everything. And I pat her arm that went that happened at the ceremony. You must indeed. And then I'll look ever so slightly towards Miss Georgiana and just give sort of a very slight, polite nod in her direction, as a like, I cannot talk to you. We are not introduced. I hope, but like,
Yeah.
she will.
essentially, apologies for stepping into a conversation that you were having with someone else. We do not know each other. I hope this is okay. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm going to leave now, all in a nod.
The Lady
Just all
Emma
of it.
actually slightly, as soon as we get this begin to turn it, Lady Emma actually will go like, yes, dancing. Well, we must prepare things soon and strike up the bands. And oh, Reverend Jennings, you haven't met my future daughter-in-law. This is Lady Lydia Coombs, soon to be Lady Northlake. Lady Lydia Coombs. This is Reverend Jennings.
Indeed.
Thank you for the introduction.
Miss Coombs, yes, of course. Is there
It would
an
be Miss, actually.
appropriate
Sorry, not
way-
Lady. Yep, go on.
Yeah, Miss Coombs. Is there an appropriate way for, like, is this a situation where it would be appropriate for me to look for the help, or
Yes.
is this just a
Actually, genuinely,
Yes?
yeah. There probably is there's like one of the lead housemaids or something probably makes themselves known a little bit and would know you a little bit and will go to escort Lady Emma away just to like go and get her something to drink or something and then get her
yeah,
seated.
well,
But you
would
do.
I know if I know this woman because she's part of the parish? If I know her name, I will address her.
Yeah.
The
I've got
head
names.
maid by name.
This is Henrietta Lydiard, the head housekeeper.
Lydiard. She is head of the household. Like she's
Yes.
the head.
She organizes all of the female members and stuff.
Wonderful. In that case, she would be referred to as Mrs. Lydiard, regardless of whether or not she's married.
Hell yeah.
Because she's the head of the head. So I would say Mrs. Lydiard. Thank you so much. Would you mind taking the lady Northlake to find some light refreshments? He seems A little thirsty.
He curtsies and takes the Lady Emma's hand, puts her away, and the two of you find yourself in a slightly strange introduction.
After a second's after a second's hesitation,
Yes,
I quickly
I
jump
will.
in
Yeah.
and say, I'm not actually. I'm sorry. My name is Georgina Wentworth. I'm terribly sorry for that moment of uh, out of sorts, somewhat. I think.
Not at all, Miss Wentworth. It is lovely to make your acquaintance. I am Reverend Samuel Jennings, the Reverend of Upper Tarriford, the church. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm sorry we have not met before. It is a travesty.
No, quite charmed. A reverend, of course. Are you? I imagine you perhaps have experience with this sort of thing. You seemed quite well at ease with how to behave.
Oh, there are a number of my who patronize the church, a number of the congregation, some of the older farm hands, that sort of thing. As much as one would wish that one's body and mind remained hale and hearty until the end, occasionally we do find that the mind may wander faster than the body. So occasionally you do come across those who need a little bit of extra care, taken with a bit more consequence than some others. They are to be treated kindly and gently, for it is not their fault that they have fallen before their time, as it were.
I understand, agree, and I sympathize to a certain extent. I remember many times where my mind has outpaced my body in flights of fancy and imagination, at the very least.
Well, with much wisdom comes much sorrow. For the more knowledge, more grief. Ecclesiastes 180.
An excellent quotation.
Thank you. And I will like pat the Bible, the very, very worn, well-read. It is my profession. I try not to proselytize or preach too much outside of Sundays, but when one reads the word of the Lord extensively, it does tend to take up the majority of one's mind. Although I do like reading generally. You mentioned imagination, Miss Wentworth. Are you also a fan of reading?
And at this point, we're talking about books. And
It's over for you.
There's history in biblical history, so I've found somebody to talk
just
to.
because I want a vague idea of like how well this conversation goes. What is your history skill?
Sure, my history skill is 45. Now, what I did just do, because I was bouncing around some points, is take out my anthropology and archaeology skill. But I feel that it is safe to say I have good library use too. I'm decently
pretty well read
about stuff. Yeah.
And your religion?
My religion is not great, comparatively. So yeah. No, I'm not going to be able to dance with you on that field, I'm afraid.
Well, see, I think this is like this would be a wonderful point because my history is 35. My religion is obviously 70. But I also have natural history, which apparently covers all science.
Oh yeah, natural philosophy.
Natural philosophy, which I have of 30. So why, like, I feel like there is a level of like I'm definitely religiously inclined higher, but this is probably the first time that I've like had a conversation with someone for whom the other areas of like where I hold interest, there is someone that holds or even exceeds that. And I'm gonna say I don't think that is like it's not a challenging thing for the Reverend because he speaks to people often and regularly about various factors, and just to find someone to talk to where he doesn't have to simplify things or is quite pleasant and it's an enjoyable conversation. Or at least, Dave, you can make us make a roll if you care to.
I'm not a loader anymore. I'm just happy to have been rescued.
Generally, I mean, if either of you wants to impress upon the other your great expertise, and this is the game of reputation, I mean, that's the name of it. Or if you're both just people kind of finding solace from the rest of it, you can have a casual.
I think this is a very explicitly the good Reverend does not actively seek to raise his reputation. He does actively seek to not lower it, for that is important.
Play the game.
But is not interested in like one-upping anyone. He is interested in holding space for people in whatever way they come to him. And a lot of those people come to him in potentially more simplistic fashion, or for people who maybe are not as educated. So he's used to holding space and is pleasantly surprised when that space is filled with someone with a higher level of intelligence and education than perhaps he's used to.
If I may, and I think we're both investigators, so it makes sense. In all of this party, all the same, this is the first real conversation. Ha 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 ha. Clap, clap, clap.
And I think perhaps there is a moment, especially as the band strikes up for like, oh, we're about to start the dancing. And I might see Lady Northlake off in the corner of my eye and just sort of say, Miss Wentworth, I will be quite frank. I am no real dancer, but the good Lady Northlake has politely offered to find me partners if I do not find them myself. I was wondering if I might trouble you to partner with me for the first 2 dances, so that the good Lady Northlake does not need to exert herself more than is necessary. I hope this is not distasteful to you.
Of course, I would be very happy to. I think I'm thinking this saves me, and dancing with a reverend is a very safe, choice as well.
And truly, I feel like this is someone for whom I'm like, this isn't someone that someone's found for me as like a wife respect. So I'm like, if I fuck this up and dance badly, I feel like this person might actually maybe not be mad about it, and it's fine.
Yep.
So there is like the Reverend holds himself quite well. If you accept, whether you notice it or not, for everyone watching at home, there is a visible kind of relief.
Excellent.
Okay, I don't have to worry about 2 dances. After that, I will have to worry because, fun fact, you are not allowed to dance with the same person. Yes, so you are allowed to ask someone for up to 2 dances in a row. After that time, you must ask someone else, because it is asking someone for 2 dances was not uncommon, but it would have been more scandalous if someone had said, I'm going to dance with you for 2 dances, and then either dance with someone else for 1 and immediately come back to you for 2, or essentially filled your card for the evening and said, I'm not letting anyone else. Usually when the time is like, oh, I'm filling someone's card for the evening, that's like, these people are getting engaged within the next couple months, maybe even a week, but for this one, 2 is the maximum I can get away with as a gentleman in this era, before having to acquiesce to dancing with someone else, because otherwise it is considered rude to both tie up a lady for longer than that, but also to not pay attention to the other ladies. You do not want to be seen to be playing favorites.
How many dances do we have to do?
Too much Jane Austen.
How many dances do we have to do in one night?
Well, the dances
as a gentleman, you may decline to dance.
Oh no! How many dances are there?
I don't know. Actually, that's not. But it's sets of 2.
Heaps.
There'll be a lot, and then I think the idea is you can dance, and then there's other things happening. Like you can go and have conversations, or you can go and play cards or things. But the dancing will kind of, at the start, everyone floods in, and then we'll kind of disperse and come back and forth. What's up, Jim?
Sorry, I just googled it, and it just says in the Regency era, each dance lasted about half an hour. So that's
strap in, man. It's dancing time, baby.
Wow.
Yeah, there's lines and reels. It's usually a circulation of a full floor, so you will go.
And the songs are all those long fugues.
Gorgeous. Okay. So 2 of you can have a conversation, and then as the band strikes up, you can make your way towards the dance floor. For the other 2 of our eligible bachelor and bachelorette, Both of you are going to be kind of taken. You have a little bit of a sense for the field, as it will, and then I'm going to park the two of you next to one another to meet.
What's Emma been up to?
Well, sorry, as you go around and are introduce some of the people, and Miss Emma, as you are basically just sort of, through gossip and things, have a bit of a sense. Captain Stone, you will also be introduced to where is it? Miss where is she here? Oh, here you go. Miss Eleanor Asher, who is the daughter of one of the women that was talking and who is a little nasty. She is very takes after her mother and kind of looks down on you a little bit as not quite, you're not landed, you're not really supposed to be. I mean, it's impressive that you were in war and she asked you a few pointed questions, but then kind of lets it drop. That said, that is a foot into genuine gentry and is probably the most appropriate, marriage for stepping up into, as it's kind of achievable. And then the other woman, there is also a younger daughter who is not yet formally out yet as in society, but is here as a child, basically attending the stand. And then the other person you're going to meet is actually introduced by her older sister. Miss Marianne Potterton is here with her brother. They have their father is widowed after their mother died some time ago, and through the rumor mill you hear that he's basically barely holding on to the estate. Miss Marianne is desperate, get the impression or this is what Mrs. Parsons plainly tells you. Miss Marianne is desperate to get both of her younger sisters married off and has since basically absolved herself of marriage, content to be an old maid, as it were. The older of the two youngers is Miss Clara, who is fairly determined academic and more interested in her books than marriage, and is somewhat snide about your military career. The other one, Miss Susan Potterton, who is the youngest, is head over heels in love with you. She is just like a tall, handsome man in a uniform. Take me away. And also there's probably a little bit of ooh, he's not my class scandal. And she is just, you could see her like at the edges of doors waiting for you, and then keeps on trying to get into conversation so an introduction can be made. And then when it's finally done, she takes your hand. She takes your hand and all but pushes her palm up to your lips, so that you can kiss it, and then says, "I'm positively charmed, Captain Stone. You're more handsome than I'd hoped to believe. I saw your entrance at the ball, and it was rather striking."
Thank you. You'll forgive me if I do not kiss your hand. My jaw, you see, brings me much pain to speak.
You were wounded in battle? She holds out her hand to daintily brush along the side of your jaw. Did it hurt ever so much?
Yes, it caused me great pain and still does to this day. Dr. Parson has been doing all he can for me, but I suffered greatly from what I experienced and what I saw.
I shan't keep you long, but perhaps I'll see you on the dance floor. And she sort of taps at the hilt of your sword, and maybe if there's any danger, I'll come running to your side. And then she swirls away towards the ball, but definitely casts a glance to see if you're looking. Yeah.
Dave, please tell me every single lady at this place is wearing those long gloves, because if she touched his face with her hand, full scandal.
Big gloves. They got them big suckers on.
Boxing gloves.
Scandal. Although you get it, she's the kind of gal that might take off a glove or two. If a little scandal just gets the reputation going.
Looking for almost like she's looking for.
She wants to get the name out there. So technically, her older sister really should be married first, Clara, but young Miss Susan has given up on, and thinks basically she wants to have a go at it. So she's trying to basically skip rank, and if a little scandal gets it going, so be it. And then lastly, you will be introduced to Miss Emma Wentworth. Although first, I am going to say, hey?
Yo,
what's up, dude? Emma, you, however, will have met George Potterton, who is Miss Susan's brother, and he is actually quite the fine fellow. You see him at first, he's attending your sort of talking to the other women on fashion. And he seems to be sort of listening in and nodding along and taking a couple notes. He is he is landed, but he's also he worked as a banker for quite some time, because his father's still in charge of the estate. So he's kind of like, it's a little total package. He's handsome, he's landed, and he's also made his own fortune to a degree and has kind of returned to help his sisters to marry. And he's also quite actively looking to marry himself. The rumor mill will speculate that he is possibly one of the ones that is entertaining Miss Elizabeth Northlake's attention, which is fairly rare. But apart from that, he's a very solid candidate for any of the women in attendance. And he's a little bit, you sort of like hosting your own like talk a little bit and kind of putting yourself out there has definitely caught his attention a little bit. You haven't had the chance for a formal discussion yet, and he moves away before you can be formally introduced, but you definitely have sort of seen one another when Mrs. Parsons, who needs to leave you soon, Captain Stone, to return to her husband for the first dance, comes along and introduces the delightful and close friend of hers, Captain John Stone, to Miss Emma Wentworth, who she understands is here and visiting. And there would have needed to be an earlier crossover so that two of you know each other, but so be it.
This is our introduction.
Yeah, that's it. And the two of you find yourself in a quiet, as people begin to head towards the ball, it is the two of you speaking.
My goodness, how exciting. You've been away for quite a long time, and this is my first ball, so I suppose we're both strangers in a strange land, right?
Yes. Yes, once you return from war, even your own home does seem strange at times. Too
Yes, this must be
quiet, too
Very
serene.
unusual. But you know,
Yes.
your jacket is immaculate. You know, we've had so many soldiers coming through lately, and most of them, they have no idea how to put themselves together at all. You know, it seems like as soon as they leave the actual military establishment, everything just goes a little bit skew-whiff, but everything you've got is as trim as one could possibly want it. Now, I've been seeing some influences of the military fashion spilling over almost into the women's styles, particularly within the winter coats and the jackets. For the outdoor fashion, not so much the indoor, but the outdoor definitely. Oh, people are going into the ballroom.
Yes.
I'm gonna look down at my dance card that's empty. Oh, bother.
Ballroom. What is that?
It's my dance card.
A dance card.
Oh, my sister's going to be upset.
What is a dance card for? Does it admit you to the dance?
No, it's the men who would like to dance with me.
Oh. Should
I've just been having so much fun.
yes. Would dance like to quite.
Wonderful. I think I'll start with a line, and then I'm just gonna like basically herd the captain in.
Towards the ball.
Well,
Very good.
done.
Very good.
Oh.
Nailed it.
You
flawless.
caught the big fish.
No interest. Here's the thing with Emma. Ideally, Emma would love to like just marry somebody who was really rich, really old, and then she could just do her thing.
Yeah.
Less interested in the whole thing than yeah.
Well, this guy's not old, but if you can get him back to the front,
Back to the front. You know, not even thinking along those lines, but like
Door.
I'm pretty sure
was
you get
like-
a pension.
I'm
Emma's
actually
just not aware of any of the men in the room in that way. Like she knows that she needs to get married, but it's like she just doesn't. She likes
I have a
hanging out with the
question?
girls.
Gals.
That's fine. Captain Stone likes hanging out with the boys. He's not at home here.
welcome to
Ah,
Regency,
separate
where
bedroom.
the gents
Fine.
splits
You'll be so
extreme.
happy.
A question, because according to my little sheet of eligible lads and ladies,
Yeah.
there's quite a few eligible ladies at this,
Not a whole
but
lot of
the
eligible
eligible
lads.
gentlemen, there is about 3 from what I can gather. There's myself-ish, there's the good captain, and then there is George, Mr. Poddington. Is there anyone else here tonight that would be considered an eligible gentleman, like a not necessarily like desirable, but an eligible partner for women.
Genuinely, there are a couple of like no names who you would just immediately dismiss, but the three of you are the men in attendance that are the most appropriate to marry.
And in all fairness, investigators don't really count because their life expectancy gets measured in 20-minute chunks.
Yeah.
Cool. Just double checking that I had that right, that there were. I'm gonna say 2 eligible gentlemen, insofar as the Reverend doesn't think of himself as eligible, but I defer that to the rest of the room.
That's your decision. Whereas there are quite a number of women who are looking to fill dance cards. The other one who is there are a couple of other ones that basically didn't attend. There's a younger brother in the ashes, I believe. Who's pointedly not here. He is the heir, and probably would be at an event like this, but has not made an attendance. As you all sort of make your way into the ball, the band has like finished practicing their instruments, and then there's a silence that falls across it, and the Lord Northlake steps towards the center and claps for attention and says, "Thank you all for coming this fine evening. I hope you found the beginning of tonight's events satisfactory." And there's a humorous chuckle because, of course, it's far beyond satisfactory. He's done a tremendous performance as always. And he says, "Thank you again for all attending our annual summer ball. I'd like to call all of your attention to my wonderful wife, who put much of tonight's events together," and he hands across to her, who takes a little bow, and everyone applauds. And then he says, "And of course to the illustrious Miss Coombs, her mother," and you see standing off towards the side a tall and fairly severe-looking older woman who is currently swinging her head around a little bit, looking for someone, but she puts on like a thin smile and nods to the audience. "And my mother, Lady Emma," who you can see Lady Emma Northlake, the Dowager, seated at the back, who stands up and gives a pleasant wave to everyone. Before he says, "But of course, the true jewel of tonight's ball is my beautiful daughter, Miss Elizabeth. Where are you, darling? Please come forward." And there's an applause that lasts a little while, and then no sign of the daughter. It begins to sort of like die out a little bit, and then a mutter comes through, and then Mrs. Coombs swings her head around and whispers something to one of the butlers, who steps across to the side. Lord Northlake tries to kind of keep momentum a little bit, trying to basically like make sure it didn't look like vent basically. He says, we've had people travel from all across Tarryford here tonight. We have, of course, Mr. Asher and his wife, Mrs. Asher. So grateful to have you in attendance. Mr. Potterton and his lovely sisters are here. We have the Mr. Havering, newly introduced to our social circle, and we are finding him quite the entertaining fellow as indeed. Dr. Parsons from in Tarryford, who's made the way here, and let's just hope that no one's ill tonight. And lastly, the Reverend Jennings and Reverend Choke here in the flesh. Perhaps an introduction is finally in order. There's a bit of a chuckle, and you can see that clearly people like that's like the go-to joke is like, which of the Reverend's churches do you attend? Reverend Choke doesn't seem stoked about that. He will also say the Wentworth sisters are here after their travels abroad, and everyone sort of turns to look at you and gives you a little applause. And the hero Captain John Stone returns from the front. As this happens, a door to the side opens up, and Miss Elizabeth sweeps in with her grandmother behind her. Probably shortly before that was sort of pulling her along by the ear, has now released it, and they're walking in. Miss Elizabeth looks a bit embarrassed to have been caught or to have been distracted, but is quickly regaining herself and is stepping forward into it. And Northlake, seeing she's returned, said, "With that, let's strike up the band and onwards with the first dance." There's a big and the band launches into song. Everyone begins to line up and find their partners. And what I want from all of you, Jim, do you want to clarify something?
Could I very quickly, when we got that one brief moment to look at Miss Coombs,
Yes.
Lydia's mother,
Yes.
could I have taken a quick glance just because I had such that strange encounter with James's mother?
Yeah.
Does she appear to have her wits about her? Like it's just a distant look. Yeah,
100%.
if you-
Do you want to give me a psychology roll?
Perfect. Thank you very much. Fired and failed. Thank you.
She
May
seems.
I?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
She seems to at this, and she seems to basically like charge off and take action very much. Reverend Jennings, you look at. You have met Mrs. Coombs. She does serve her sometimes. She is a fairly serious woman. She doesn't dislike James, but she holds him to a very high standard, so as to befit her daughter, and she loves Elizabeth more than anything in the world. She would kill someone if they tried to hurt her. She's very like protective of her and of the family as a whole. She does come across as quite harsh to outsiders because you have a bit of the inside loop. You know that she's very, very defensive of her family.
Is it a defensiveness that could be seen as there is no one good enough for my granddaughter? Like
Yes.
even Pottington would not be suitable, and like
She
it
would
is.
She would find fault in that tried to. She finds fault in James, who's honestly a pretty good bloke for her daughter, and her daughter married up into it, but she still kind of holds him to a higher standard. You also know that Lydia has a little bit of that as well. Like, neither of them really think that anyone's good enough for Elizabeth. They think she's this, like, perfect child.
Which is fair enough for mothers and mothers of mothers to think about their daughters. Just a curiosity of, do I suspect that they might attempt to stand in the way of Elizabeth marrying anyone and have to be talked down?
There is a
as it were?
pretty real chance of that. Now, Elizabeth's only recently been introduced to the sort of social scene, so there's still time. She's only 16. She has, time to mingle, and things are not pressing. She's got another good 2-3 years before that would begin to look a little. But she's also very, she's beautiful, intelligent, and very, very wealthy. So there'll be more than enough people, people seeking her hand, whether the parents and grandparents accept it.
Notably, too, just based on what you've said, only child, right?
Yes,
And
only child.
16 years, and which means that is there an heir apparent to?
So most likely, you don't know 100%. Your assumption would generally be she won't get it. There'll be a brother somewhere that it'll go to, but if they're all dead, it will go through to her. But if there's a brother or an uncle or something that's around, it'll go to them first.
Gotcha.
Your assumption, generally, you would not consider, if she gets it, it'll be super unlikely, to a point that's probably not really on. You just assume it'll go across to someone else. That's
It's more
it.
likely that she would have quite a sizable, not dowry, but whatever the like equivalent of like there would be money
Oh, huge.
put aside for her. So like she comes with a sizable chunk of money.
They are
when
the
married.
wealthiest family in Tarryford, and they would go toe to toe with most people in the region. They're stacked. So yes, absolutely. All right, as the band strikes up and everyone begins to step forward, I'm going to ask everyone to make etiquette rolls to see how you handle yourselves through the forthcoming scene.
Cannot get another success. Thank goodness.
Let's see how we go.
Oh God.
Oh, sorry, I rolled on somebody else's sheet. Ignore me. I rolled on somebody else's sheet. So I was checking other people's
That's
stuff.
roll. That still
I was
counts.
checking other people's stats to like.
No,
Yeah.
that still counts. I like that.
No, I have a different one.
Let's
sorry.
go 4 failures. Why not?
I think that I might.
Oh, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you
I'm
got
gonna
yours.
burn-
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Was
going
it
to burn 5
There we
points
go.
of luck.
Just succeed?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So our
I had
two
everyone's
succeed.
sheets open, and I'm like, okay, let's plot.
What's going on here? All right, our 2 successful sisters. So what this means, no one fumbled, so no one's immediately losing reputation. What this just means is you can't really find yourself in the right area, and you're not 100% sure like who you're supposed to be interacting with. The sisters, you've got a really good sense of where you stand. You both have basically cards for the first dance. You can dance the Reverend and the Captain Stone. Those are genuinely totally acceptable. They are technically under your station, both of them, but because you're newly returned, it's perfectly acceptable. You would expect to have someone approach you later on for further dances. What this also means is if you push yourself a little bit, you can try and aim higher. If you want, and we'll do the first dance first, you could try and a charm or a persuade roll or something to get the attention of, because married partners will dance with, like, you can dance with someone who's married as well. It's just a chance to have a quiet conversation, basically make a connection. You could, try and dance with, Dr. Parsons, or if you make a hard roll, you could try and dance with Lord Northlake himself, which would probably be the most, reputation booning person in the room. But you would have to succeed a roll to try and, wheedle that agenda through, if you know what I mean. But Reverend Jennings and Captain Stone, you're a little bit on the back foot here. You're going to have a penalty dice if you try to ask someone else to dance and try and, negotiate that.
I think with that, it is very likely that I just end up, depending on obviously what happens from here, that I end up dancing with essentially whoever Lady Northlake places me with, which I suspect would be probably the younger of the Ashes, perhaps the younger of the Pottingtons, or one of the, actually possibly with Marianne, the older of the ones, just as she needs a partner, you should dance with her. Like, I am essentially put with people who are not really suitable as marriage partners necessarily, and definitely don't like me.
Lydia's possibly
I'm not of interest to them.
I was like, Lydia's you are not illegible. If any, you're a known person in the town. Sure, it's marriage in the church, but you're successful, you're stable, you're well liked and things. You're not an unappealing option for, again, a younger child, probably. All right.
Or someone who is risking not marriage at all because
of one of the
age.
old, 100%. All right, can I get everyone to make a dancing roll? And Alex, can you please roll yours with a penalty
Don't have that
dice?
skill, Dave.
Oh, then your base is your dex divided by 5.
Why have I got a penalty dice?
Find out shortly.
I just do. Okay. I wasn't something I've already done. That's fine.
No.
Okay. Is it because I'm dancing with Jackson?
It is.
Sorry.
No,
So
you
this
need
is
Dex divided by 5, so you're gonna need an
Dancing.
extreme function.
You need dancing
I'm
or
fine.
extreme dex.
So
Yes, that's right.
Can I roll my dex?
That's
and then
fine. Let's
just
do it
aim
as an extreme. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I need a 10. No, I don't fumble completely over my own feet. I'm not good at this.
I'm fine, thank you, even with the penalty dice. Without
Okay.
the penalty dice, it would have been a hard success. With the penalty dice, I'm still good.
But everyone that succeeded can gain a point of reputation,
Oh wow.
and everyone that
Yay.
failed, no one fumbled, right?
No.
All right, everyone that failed, no penalty. You can opt to push the roll and try and really bust them out, or you can just accept that you're not really making moves. Miss Emma, you have a penalty dice because as you begin to dance, you see young Miss Susan Potterton glare at you from across the room, and then as your paths cross, she fully tries to kick one of your legs out from under. It's subtle, but
Yeah.
she's definitely sabotaging you.
And we established I squat in carriages. I'm strong. You can't kick me down.
So she tries to sweep a leg out from under you at one point, but you do a little spin over it, whirl away, and Captain Stone is none the wiser, unless you wish to tell him.
Oh. I'm
I
just
think
trying to put one foot in front of the
I won't.
other.
I'll be
You're
like,
just trying to get
oh, I gotta fix that.
You mentioned
See.
battle. He's getting the sword out.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Yeah, probably don't sneak up on him. Don't give him any
Yeah,
sudden
no.
surprises.
So as the dance goes on, people swirl around, and these dances are this great opportunity for basically particularly young couples and young people to speak privately. Every other time there's a chaperone nearby or a parent or something that's keeping an eye on you and making sure you don't do something inappropriate. While you're dancing, you have a chance for a quiet word that basically no one else can hear over the sound of the music and things. And you can see people taking advantage of that. They're talking and whispering as they exchange partners, sort of gossip begins to fly around. You can also see a little sense for some of the people moving around the room. One is well, you see Miss Susan Potterton, who's quite infatuated with the Captain Stone, has her eyes on him, and will definitely be seeking a dance with him after. The other person of note is, of course, young Miss Elizabeth Northlake, who seems ever so slightly distracted, and also rather titillated. She seems quite entertained by something, and as she goes whirling around, she lands next to the young Miss Julia Asher, who you haven't really talked to yet, but she's the daughter of the quite religious man, and the two of them are whispering animatedly at one point before they're swirled away by their partners, and you see Miss Elizabeth gesture over her, pointing to the doorway through which she came. Partners swirl around, and then as the dance breaks away, or the pair of dancers in this instance, people begin to scatter. The formal dances is happening. From here on out, more people begin to dance, but others are beginning to retire elsewhere. Some are going to play cards, or, play a little piano, continue to sort of build their budding reputation and get attention, while others will continue to dance and move their way around. Captain Stone, I will flag that you see Miss Susan quite pointedly walking towards you, or staying within earshot at any given time. The rest of you, Reverend Jennings, you have fulfilled your obligation of having a dance. I pass it to you. I'll actually ask everyone to make a spot hidden roll, just as we finish off. Oh, well done. The Wentworth sisters. They're away.
Yeah.
We got it. We got it.
I am like, most of my rolls have been right on the nose. Like, they've been on what I need. Like,
We're gonna run this town, you and I.
That's
I know,
actually
right?
That's actually really fun, because you actually ran with Miss Elizabeth a little bit when you were younger. You can see a little bit of memory. Miss Elizabeth goes and fetches Miss Julia Asher, who's about her age. Actually, she's exactly her age. She also talks to Susan, but she's got her eyes on Captain Stone and dismisses it. And then the two girls go back, skirting through that doorway again. And as they do, you spot on an extreme, Georgiana, that Elizabeth has pinched a long fabric measuring tape, like one might use to measure dresses or something. She's probably nicked it off her grandmother or stolen it, but she holds it out and whispers excitedly to her friends, and then the two girls disappear. You also know, because you used to play here, that she is going through the ballroom into what is this long corridor that then leads out towards the back, like the gardens and things. It also connects through to the small parlor. You see the two girls dart out that way, and then the door.
I know my sister is a dressmaker, and if that was some kind of tool for, working with that sort of thing, I'd probably just mention it. And I imagine that if we've passed the spot hidden check, maybe we lock eyes with each other.
I think we do that almost constantly. Like, anytime something happens, there's like a silent communication. Because if our parents are away and then we've really just got a household full of household stuff, we don't really have anybody else. So I'd say we'd be really close. And anytime something happens like that, we'd just both be like, ooh.
If during, as the crowds continue to circulate, we find a moment, I'll just say, it must be what dragged her away ever so slightly earlier. Something exciting happening.
I don't have another dance on my card, and I don't like being left out.
Oh, yes, well, we probably should.
Is it possible that I have sort of because I think I engaged you for 2 dances, I don't know how many there have been, so I will kind of follow behind you because I think we've only had the one dance.
Yes, this can be in between,
so
100%. That's
so if I may be so bold as to say that while
as
I
Captain
do not
Stone,
stand
you're probably
over
present
here,
as well.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
possibly,
'Cause our dance is just finished.
maybe looking to avoid, because I think as soon as you leave this conversation, Miss Susan is
Yeah.
going to engage you
Very
quite
much
fervently.
so.
So you
I
can keep
would,
yourself in it.
And suddenly
like
the
that not to
investigators find themselves in a
Also,
group. Yes.
Running
we've done
from
it.
a teenage
Hey.
girl.
I believe in this situation, it is not unreasonable for someone of the clergy to make a polite introduction to someone who potentially is of the area, even though the good captain and I have not been formally introduced, because there is the connection of the two sisters and we are standing nearby one another. I think as a member of the clergy, there is a little bit of leeway for me to say,
Miss Emma also has
an
the
introduction
connection
of
through.
myself.
Yes, yeah.
And
Is
Miss
Emma
Emma has a
allowed to
connection
introduce
through.
me? Is Emma allowed to introduce me?
Yeah,
or
we-
is it the
Emma-
ladies can't make introductions.
No,
That's a bit fuzzy.
I think
It's a
we're
little-
I
doing.
also don't really know. I don't know the Reverend. So
I think
can't
it's
introduce
okay
you
for
to the-
this
yeah.
one, just because honestly, also the NPCs are stacked in favor of women in this scenario, so I think
Yeah.
they have to be doing introductions.
I think
most
it's
of the time.
reasonable to be like to sort of do a general, and then essentially it's
Yeah.
enough for us to then talk to each other and introduce ourselves.
Yeah, they can
So,
maybe do. Emma,
We
you can
converse
do.
it.
And you're good.
just a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Captain Stone. I've heard many good things about you and your time in the military. I hope that the stresses and the trials and tribulations of war have not weighed too heavily on your mind or your soul. But if you are looking for ever any alleviation, you need only attend my chapel, and I would be more than happy to assist you with any spiritual matters. Although I do understand you are one of frequent the Tarringford church with the good Reverend. His name. Choke, yes, with the good Reverend Choke, who I do not have the pleasure to know personally, but I have heard many things.
Yes. Reverend Choke's sermons are interesting.
Enthusiastic is what I've heard.
Quite. Yes. Enthusiastic. A fine word. Although, now that I am back, I should like to very much attend one of yours.
But of course, you would be more than welcome, sir.
Oh, actually, generally
Anytime.
flag. It is a Saturday, so tomorrow you will be holding a sermon.
Huh. Well, there you go.
You're more than welcome. We can certainly ensure that there is a place put aside for you. Are you more comfortable, sir, closer or for the benefit of hearing, or do you prefer to be a little further back for privacy's sake?
Oh,
Well, muted,
well, we'll
so-
never know.
I sure
Privacy.
am.
Let's assume privacy based on
I
the.
further back would be fine if such an accommodation could be made. Thank
We
you.
are more than willing to accommodate the needs of anyone who joins our parish. It is important that everyone feels comfortable when they are communing with the Lord. It makes no sense for anyone to feel discomfort. The Lord is, of course, there for all of us,
Thank you.
and should be felt as such. So your comfort is, of course, paramount.
I'm sold. Sign me up.
On a
The Reverend genuinely cares about every single person that crosses his path. He's just a sad man.
And that shall be his undoing. I
On-
predict.
on a lighter note, perhaps you saw Spain, did you not, during your travels?
I did.
Did you have any time to admire the cities or the countryside, or were you otherwise occupied throughout your entire?
Alas, our march was long and arduous and hard. There was little time to appreciate what devastation the Bonapartes have ravaged upon the land. They are cruel tyrants.
I see.
And I am glad they should be unseated soon.
Well, good. Speaking of unseated, there's an unseated person anxiously attempting to approach you, I believe, lingering just behind.
Yes, the younger Miss Potterton is making a swift approach, and I must say she kicked me when we were dancing. So maybe we just can we not?
Yes, she does
Can we?
not seem to have an appreciation of my injuries, and
I would
I should not like
be-
to embarrass her.
Miss Wentworth. Elder.
We
I'm
both
going to
just
say
go,
which one I'm addressing, but would
You
not
say Miss-
Look
actually.
at that.
You'd say Miss Wentworth and Miss Emma, right?
No, I would say Miss
No.
Wentworth, and I would direct to them. So
Yeah.
for the sake
It's a
of,
good
for the sake of the
system.
fact that we are on Zoom,
It's a good
I'm
system,
going
but
to
we're on
say, Miss Georgia, I at this point we would not refer to each other by first names.
Yep,
but
yep,
I will
I'm
say for the sake
following,
of this,
following.
Miss Georgiana
I
Wentworth.
thought I was getting the hang of it. I still have much to learn.
No. If you're talking about them in third person, you would delineate by Christian name
Lord,
for the younger. But
okay.
if you're talking to them, you would just talk to them.
It's a good
good
system.
large enough groups, perhaps a stroll in the gardens, or
I was about to suggest such a thing. I know I did promise 2 dances, but as you can see, my feet are not the lightest, and I would be more than willing to relinquish your hand if you so wish to dance with someone else, Although, of course, I'm more than willing to accompany you around the gardens if that should be such. I also, forgive me, Miss Emma, note that your card is empty. Should you wish a partner to dance this evening?
Yes, please, thank you.
You did see I was not a particularly fashionable
That's okay.
dancer.
I'm good enough for both of us, and I've put darts in this dress, and with the ruching at the back, it's nobody will notice.
Well, that's marvelous. I will put my name down for the following 2 dancers. Of course, I cannot take one away from your elder sister. Although if we choose both not to dance, then that is as it is. Again, entirely disinterested, but knows that he has an obligation to the young ladies to ensure that if they wish to dance, they have a partner to dance with, because otherwise they sit on the side and do jack shit. So he's like, there's very few men, I'm gonna have to do the thing.
They can also remove themselves to like the parlor at this point. Like you can begin to separate, but definitely the theory, if you want to, if you're looking to romance.
It is an, if you would like essentially I am not explicitly saying this because that would be untoward, but the implication is if you would like a name on your dance card because it is socially appropriate to have one and it looks good, you may place my name down.
Exactly.
But again, similarly,
if anyone
if we are in the parlor, if we're walking during those dances, well, no matter. Essentially, whenever you next need to dance, if you are not spoken for, you may assume that I will step in, unless I have had to speak for someone else. But I'm not going to actively go for that until I have danced with Miss Emma.
Well,
Miss Potterton is approach. That door in the corner of the ballroom goes to the gardens, and we can avoid the young Miss Potterton.
The floor might be a bit quieter once some people have retired to the parlor. Perhaps, yes, a walk seems suitable. And
I will offer. I will say slightly louder than would be fashionable, but because we have been alerted to Miss Potterton coming near, as saying, Captain, I would be very interested to hear more about your time in the Corps. Would you be so kind as to accompany me into the gardens? I would rather like some fresh air. Miss Wentworth, would you care to join us? And just kind of make a bit of a louder proclamation so that she can hear, because I'm trying to not make awkward things.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So can I get I kind of want a persuade or an intimidate or something to try and get the point across and bugger off. Basically handling this handedly, respectfully.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm willing. I can go etiquette if that's appropriate. I'm happy
Probably
to do
more
persuade.
I think a persuade or something. I think it's one of the social.
Nice.
I'm relatively persuasive.
Yeah, you really close the doors around that conversation. Make it clear that this is a private thing and Miss Susan will not be entertained at the moment. She clearly hears it and doesn't shoot you a nasty look, although there's a small one towards Miss Emma and Miss Georgiana too, who are leaving. But then she swirls her way and goes to seek another eligible dance partner. She is very much staying on the floor, and also there's a lot of men looking to entertain her. She will quickly have others come up and ask her for the next dance, and she'll be moved back on. And in time, and with other attentions, you suspect her interests will fade. She's young and more infatuated than anything else with Captain John Stone, but he's a dashing man and a hero at war. Wouldn't it be so entertaining if she'd dance with him?
He is so dashing. He's dashing out of here.
Just double checking, because this is something that would be front of the Good Reverend's mind, and also just people of the time.
Yeah.
There is a garden for walking. Are there other people out there at the moment? Are there some of the other couples who are walking around? So essentially, if we were to leave with the Wentworths, it would be in the visibles. There are other people out there. It's not quite chaperoned,
reasonable.
but it's not
totally reasonable.
It's reasonable.
Totally reasonable.
Okay, great.
Yeah, very much. People have had, and as the sun is beginning to set, some people will be going out to take a turn around the gardens. Yes.
Lovely.
So do you want to leave going the way that you saw Miss Elizabeth going?
Heck yeah.
I'd like to softly push everyone in that direction.
I mean, you have the either one or both of the young ladies may take the Reverend's arm. He will offer to both, but obviously will also defer to the captain if the captain wishes to take one of the ladies. That would be appropriate. Will offer my arm to the eldest. That is the appropriate one. And very willingly gets, like, even though technically he's meant to lead, will very happily be, like, gently ushered in the direction he will acquiesce.
We've got a whole sister psychic thing going on. I think we
just like,
catch eyes and go, we're going, lead them.
we're out. And I'll take the captain's arm and just quietly kind of mutter, well, Miss Potterton hates me already.
Oh, I did not mean to impugn anyone. It's just she is a bit handsy.
And I'm gonna bit footy.
As the four of you leave the hall and spirited mutant fades somewhat behind you to be muted by the heavy walls of North Lake Hall, you open a doorway and emerge into this long corridor that runs the length of the house. It's a very old part of the building, and you can see it's got a number of sort of tapestries and things hung along it. To the right, heading back towards the entrance, you can see it runs down to the small parlor, and the door is currently open. And you can see a collection of people just sitting down to begin to play some games of chance. They've got sort of cards and things that we can thumb them out and pass little tokens that represent small pools of currency. Seated amongst them, recognize Mrs. Coombs, who is there, along with both of the Parsons are present, and Mrs. Parsons is more animatedly discussing the merits of tokens versus currency, and why don't we raise the stakes a little. In the hallway itself is empty, although to the left you can see, there's gonna be commas in the center, I promise. Towards the left there is another doorway that goes out to the gardens. That's the important part. The hall is empty, comma, but for Miss Elizabeth Northlake and the young Miss Julia Asher. Miss Elizabeth has gotten out her run of tape and got it placed like midway down the hallway. She's got it run, and then she points towards the end and says, "Now stand here, Julia." And Miss Asher stands at the point, and then Miss Northlake grabs up the tape, uses Miss Julia's place as like a holding point because the tape's not that long, runs it down again, and then goes, "Now here." And then Julia walks again, stands it, and they're measuring the length of the hallway piece by piece by piece. Miss Elizabeth seems entirely focused on this task. She's a little, excited, dashing back and forth. Miss Julia seems mostly disinterested. She's currently standing. She's a kind of slight, pretty girl with very dark black hair, dressed in. It was probably quite a nice dress at one point, but elements have been removed, like the corset. I don't really know the parts. I think Alex, you can probably help me out. Like the corset's gone and the hat's missing, and she's standing barefoot.
No, the corset wouldn't be gone. What'd be gone would be if they're wearing like a shawl would be. There would be a shawl and kind of a little jacket maybe if she was very fashionable. But there would definitely be a shawl. Shawls were big, and there would be like a really sheer outer dress, and then a slightly less sheer. We were in a very big sheer, but there's not a lot to kind of remove. What might have happened though is with the waistline, that might have been if it's an older front fastening dress or something, it might have loosened the actual fastenings a little bit or taken them out a little bit for a little bit more movement.
Also, there is an element of quite often part of the attire was allowing the petticoat to be seen depending on when in the era we are, and so some of that you could let down areas of the dress to either reveal or hide, because the petticoats were quite nicely some of them were for show, some of them were definitely not, but if you were very fashionable at this point, you would be having Tudor and Gothic elements in fashion where you would have slits and splits and to show the fabric underneath, like that classic kind of slash sleeve sort of thing. She could have
would
had
be
one
going
of
on,
those
little,
so jackets.
Yeah, there would definitely be a little
sleeve that might have been removable in favor.
Definitely
of
a shawl though.
Yeah. The context.
Shawl.
Yeah. The context of it is she's definitely removed her shoes and some out elements, and basically gone down to not to be inappropriate, but to rid herself of excess. She's wearing no jewelry or anything, and she's taken out. You remember when you saw her when she first arrived? Her brother or someone had put like a quite sorry, it would have been her mother, had put like a nice little like piece of decoration in her hair. That's since been removed.
It's been her maid.
Yes, that's true.
On insistence of her mother, but it would have been her maid.
Has all been removed, and she's standing there and she's saying, I think it's disgusting, this much excess when people are suffering. Have you been down to Tarryton recently, Elizabeth? There's people in the streets and they're ever so poor. They go hungry every night. And while there's this much niceness, I mean, have you seen the canapes outside? Much of that will go to waste, and the people will be hungry for it. We should take it as much as we can, we should fetch a carriage, and we should ride it down there, tonight. Give it to all the people. Take away this spoiled madness and level the field. What do you say? And Elizabeth goes, stand here. Look, it's longer. I swear it's longer. And she's nearing the other end as the four of you make your entrance. And Elizabeth is obsessively like kind of working on anything. But Julia looks up and says, "Oh,
Good evening.
good evening.
Evening, young ladies.
I trust we're not interrupting or finding you in distress.
Distress. No,
do-
not interrupting. It's Elizabeth. It's guests.
Yeah, because do any of us? I know Miss Elizabeth. Do you two know Ash? I know Asher, don't I? I do.
Yes. You would know all of it. You actually, she's a part of your congregation. This is her father is this like super into religion, and that goes through the family. I don't know with the exception of the mother. This is the youngest daughter, only recently sort of like out in the world, and although she's not actually formally part of society yet, and she is like very crusading. She's constantly like, no excess. We should give everything to the poor. She's clearly found some passages in the Bible that she's really lacking. So yes, you would know.
In that case, I would say Miss Asher, if I may, take the honor of presenting Miss Georgina Wentworth and Miss Emma Wentworth, and of course the good Captain Stone. Is it Stone? I'm so sorry.
Yep,
Yes,
it is
the good
now.
Captain Stone. Ladies, Captain Stone, if I may introduce Miss Julia Asher. And I'll do the formal introduction so everyone can talk to each other without it being
Weird rude.
Julia Asher is the younger sister of Eleanor Asher.
The younger sister
Yes.
of... Yes, that's right.
Eleanor Asher.
Fantastic. Oh, this is the one campaign you actually need to take notes. I'm going to take notes.
Just
rather.
for
There
me.
is also our cheat sheet. The little who's who has all of this.
What?
We have a who's who?
Yeah,
What?
there's a who's who.
Oh,
The handouts.
dang it.
I mean, I'm
Alright.
still making notes, but yeah. So I will introduce and say I see that you and Miss Northlake are undertaking quite the architectural undertaking.
Elizabeth looks ahead of him and she goes, "It's longer! I told you it was longer! It was shorter just the other day! The corridor's gotten longer!"
Well,
I see. Do you? How fascinating! Is it a facet of the tape you were using, Mom, or perhaps is it a?
What about the rugs and the tables? Did they extend too, or just the corridor?
And Miss Julia says, "Perhaps it's
What's on
the
the plans?"
excess, squashing it all away and seeping out the sides." Elizabeth ignores Julia completely and says, The rugs are the same length, and there's no tables in here with which to measure. The paintings seem as evenly spaced as ever, but I swear it's longer. Oh wait, what are we? America? No, we're England. A meter.
it's feet.
We're England.
Oh, it is feet now. 3 feet at least.
It's still feet. We're in Imperial.
What?
Right.
Don't say meter around the guy who was in the Napoleonic War.
Yeah.
No.
Just settle down, Stone.
We're definitely.
Someone
we're
roll
definitely still in
reassure.
Imperial, so money's weird, and weight and distance is also still weird. Feet, inches, pennies, shillings, crowns.
3 feet.
Pounds.
That should be a visible difference.
Yes.
Significant.
I had the feeling first when I was playing hopscotch just the other day. I was bounding down the hall and I realized I seemed to be landing further than I was before. And I measured it. Now, here, see, I've reached the end and look, the tape measure still has some length to it. And she shows that while she's ended like a full slot down, there is another at least half a length that the measure could run before it would meet the doorway on the other side. From inside the small parlor you hear, "Shush, darling. and they head up and we'll go to close the door so that Elizabeth's distracting the games on the side.
It's
What about the inside wall of the ballroom or the oh, I remember from when we were young, the servants' corridor is next door, yes?
Yes, the other
that changed
corridor. We can measure that, and that will let us know. Come.
Well,
and
we can't measure it. You can't measure it now because it's a party, and if anyone sees you in the servants' corridor, I know we used to play there as children, but
she grabs your hand and goes, "What's the point of being the owner of the house if you can't use it?" And she spirits away, heading towards the servants' corridor, and she's taking you with her.
I am not smart.
Genuinely traveling with the daughter of one of the hosts is probably enough to get away with it. But honestly, what it will look is childish. It looks like you are children playing and rushing around from room to room.
Like,
I'd follow.
I'm curious.
I'd say this is if indeed the shape of a room, of part of the house is changing, that does not bode well to the structural integrity. We may need to find an architect or an engineer to make sure
I
it's
can't allow
still
my
safe.
younger sister to be alone with the captain, so now I have to go, which means you're coming too, because I need a chaperone.
Very well. I think I'm going to try and keep as level ahead as possible and I just get swept along and things. I don't think, as someone who's almost 40, this is not a thing that is I'm curious about this, but I am just I have to, okay, I'll go, I guess.
I'm playing not curious. I'm very curious.
You're
I
trying to be cool.
try to hang back with you a little behind the group so it looks like that we're monitoring the situation. And I say something like, there's probably a plan for the house or something like that. She'll have measured wrong. It's just but it looks so fun. And what did you get? What was
Maybe
the
have a quick go of that. You make sure you stand it down. Really get the edge. You're losing an inch there.
As long
they seal the ends on these things. Do you count the end, or are you?
As long as we are, of course, mindful, there are people who are trying to. There are people for whom our presence is a disturbance, and while they are used to dealing with such disturbances in spaces where we are expected, it is unreasonable to place oneself in a position that would impede those who, due to their role, cannot ask us politely to move.
In my experience, Reverend, if a building falls on top of you while you are trying to carry out your duties, that also can be quite an impedance.
We'll be in and out quickly. It's the quickest way to get it done.
I think if I notice a kind of long stare coming over the good captain, I would say, a captain, of course, if you are concerned about the nature of the building and the structural integrity, then we must indeed ensure that everything is safe. Although this house has stood here for many hundreds of years, so I would not concern yourself unduly if that was indeed what was going.
My mind would be at rest if we were to investigate.
As you're finishing talking, Emma, you and Elizabeth have been swept around the side, and so the other three of you hear a little shriek of excitement. And she goes, "It is shorter! I can see it already!" And then, sitting in the small parlor, you hear Miss Coombs go, "Elizabeth!" And stand up and walk towards her. But she's just going to make sure that she doesn't come in from the small parlor anymore. And you guys go back and forth throughout the garden if you're going to continue to measure. Stepping into the servants' corridor, you can see some connections through kitchens and things. And before measuring it, which you may still want to do, it is visibly shorter. Now, it could be that there's a curve or something, and things are strange, but you are a little bit the thing is, all of this is you've only seen it briefly. For the women, this is something you remember playing in when you were younger, so it's a very half a memory. You're trying to think it. It does seem a little odd, though, and Elizabeth's excitement is perfection.
Sorry, so we noticed that the servants' corridor is shorter than the long corridor, but they believe the long corridor is getting longer. Yes, is what they believe.
That's right.
And they were previously conceivably the same length.
They should
they're the same one.
They appear as
What about outside? I'm going to be out in the garden, looking between the two, hang on.
Especially since that's the way they want you to come and go now. You head out towards the back. And so the doors into the small parlor are at the same place. You come out the same, you come out flush. Heading to the garden, as you open the door, you will see at the same time the Reverend opening the one from the servants, and you meet flush. face to face. But looking back then, there does appear to be a visible stretch, and Elizabeth is now beginning to pace her way down it, measuring the small corridor. Miss Julia has lost interest and has returned to the party.
Maybe there is something here about excess. It really does seem like the servants' quarters are more cramped and claustrophobic.
I mean, the corridor is narrower, but it shouldn't be long. It shouldn't be shorter.
What's the difference?
It's
In
longer.
length?
The seventh corridor is shorter.
At least
It's
3
shorter.
feet longer.
3 feet.
And you can see it. Look, if you swap between the two, if you come out into the garden and go back into the long corridor for the corridor next to the ballroom from the servants' corridor, if you go out and come back in again to the other one, you can see it.
How can it grow? How can a corridor grow? When I was playing here the other day, I only stubbed my foot because I leapt an extra time. A foot, at most, the difference. But today, 3 feet. It's grown 2 feet overnight. How can a corridor grow?
But only on the inside.
As the good Lord does tell us in Proverbs 23:33, your eyes will see strange sights and your mind will imagine confusing things. Perhaps this is all just a momentary fascination delivered unto us by the Lord, and perhaps imbibing of punch.
But I
But
measured it.
Perhaps
I measured it
should.
twice.
Perhaps I could
course.
inquire upon comrades in the Corps of Royal Engineers to investigate further. Again, it would not do if this building is indeed structurally unsound.
Well, by the time a
You're,
letter reaches the
you're also going to
core-
want to tread a little carefully here, because implying that their house is going to fall over is a bit like shit work, isn't it, mate? You genuinely
I
you'd
would
want to
say-
tread really
yeah.
light, because they will probably just go, absolutely not. We built this when we were 7.
By the time the letter reaches the core, at this rate, it'll have grown by 60 feet or so. Do you have
Did
something
you just do the math in your head there, Georgie?
Could you have a marker? Just mark the ground. That should work. A simple
did the math
mark.
in her
if
head.
I have
that
chalk.
rate
She's
of
always doing
speed,
this.
I
it'll
have
be
chalk
long
from when I
enough
was
to-
playing hopscotch. She races down and finds like a small piece of chalk and can leave a stroke. Where do you want it? On one of the furthest edge or in the center?
Well, let's do like
Increments?
fixed.
Yeah.
So she can't
mounts.
do many because servants are going to clean it.
People notice.
So
Just very subtle ones, like
perhaps
2 feet in.
Just a foot from the garden door.
Yep.
Just so that if it is indeed lengthening, then we should see that foot changes.
Or
to
behind
more
the
than that.
pictures.
So behind the pictures would work, and it might work. So as we draw this session to a close, because we're nearing the end of our window, leave it here with this remarkably lengthening corridor. Hence the name of the scenario.
Oh, really? That's
that
not
would-
good.
What's the name of the
A
scenario?
long corridor.
Write that down. Write that
Write
down.
that down, write that down. That's important. I'm going to ask each of you to make a few rolls here. So, does anyone want to do anything to try and verify Elizabeth's information, get an exact? You can try, like, do you have like a mathematics or like some kind of appropriate skill? I'll leave that to you guys to have a think.
Nope.
And then I'm also going to ask everyone to make either something like a stealth or a fast talk. Basically, you're a little bit running around like children, and this is going to be a reputation hit as you basically play while there's a party happening. It's not going to be huge, it's just going to be a point. It's basically going to be a bit like, well, it was nice that they were entertaining them, but really, shouldn't they be doing more grown-up things? And I thought the Wentworth sisters came here to marry.
Sure.
I think going through the parlor, I would have made it very clear that I was being. I think it would. I'm going to go fast talk, and it will be something I've said while kind of being dragged through the parlor, possibly around calming Elizabeth's nerves. Or Elizabeth is helping me calm my nerves. This is my first party, and I've had one dance, and I just don't know if I did it very well. And I just really want to. I need a little bit of time, out in the corridors, just talking to my old childhood friend. And
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
she's being such a good friend, and she's so lovely, and she's calming my nerves for me.
It's shorter. Yep. Nice. Mrs. Coombs remembers you from when you were younger and does a bit of, well, that's fine and well, dear. Take as much time as you need. And you will get away without the reputation hit. How with everyone else?
I might try stealth. I literally just try, and if I not
Just
like
try and not be
full
noticed.
sneaky,
Yeah,
I just
it's
try
just-
and find it.
You blend in, you don't get noticed.
Here we go. Almost hit swim. That would have gotten me noticed. Nope. Failure.
You're going to
Reputation
take
hit.
1 point of reputation hit, as basically there's
wow.
a bit of a, well, I suppose the chaperone must follow her, but does she need to shriek so much? Seems they're having an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, my deepest apologies for that. I just in fact I best catch them right away before they. Sorry. And can I also make the closest I can think of to an accounting roll? Genuinely, can I try and count? It's got count in
Counting's
it.
a little bit mathsy.
Yeah.
I'd say it probably needs to be hard to get you through it, but there's a thread.
You know what? In which case, if you'll let me try something different, I'm pretty spot like at that rate. Like we should be able to just see it growing in, like by the moment, right? If it can I make a spot hidden check and really
Just
just
to really
squint?
see if you can spot. Yeah, go ahead and give me a spot hidden.
And to be what I'm expecting, because if it doesn't work like this, I'm surely I won't see anything. Is like you get a chalk line, and you just watch, and the distance is going to really slowly encroach. Like,
The thing is, it is like quite long. It's I've got the measurement. It's quite a long pass. This is going to be very difficult, just like through the naked eye, if at all possible. But you can go ahead and give. I'm maybe on a harder you would have on that level. You cannot visibly
invisible
see.
as the naked eye.
Yes,
Good.
that's
Excellent.
right.
Is it reasonable to rely on etiquette at this point to try and
Here's the
like
thing. The etiquette is kind of you shouldn't be doing a bit. You could remove yourself from the circumstance, but you're kind of this is you trying to get away with doing something a little inappropriate. The etiquette's not going to cover this.
I know this is and I'm fine if the answer is no, or if it needs to be a
Religion.
hard. Genuinely, because I am religious, and like that gives me the air of like I have a responsibility for the well-being of like people. There seems to be heightened emotions here. I am like essentially approaching this from a really chaperone.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to give the chaperone.
I think
vibe.
I'd need a
like,
social
but-
skill for that. You could try persuade, would be fine. What if you
Persuade. I'm happy to
Persuade's okay for me. Like that's you.
Because you know, preachers will often like go on these weird kind of extended tangents, which turn out to be, you know, a
It's a
parable.
metaphor. Yeah.
It's a
I
metaphor.
have also
yeah, like
just quoted a handful of Bible verses. Well, I've quoted one at least as a like. Perhaps this is a learning.
If you measure in
experience.
fathoms and cubits like they did Noah's Ark, it gets to a.
I'm thinking
No,
about
I'm
the-
happy. I'm happy to give a persuade if that's preferable.
Yes.
The only other thing that I'm looking at that I can think of is potentially like a history to be like I'm curious about the history of the house.
That might
and
get you
therefore,
some
like,
information that won't get you out of this reputation.
All right, let's try persuade then.
You're
Ooh.
gonna take a point. It's just a little bit. This is kind of your first time at the ball. People see you a little bit removing yourself. You're not doing the social thing. You're kind of rushing about with the children. It's not a huge thing, but that's just the nature of gossip. Captain Stone.
I mean, there's already some interesting gossip swirling about the fact that I have not married and where do my interests lie.
Yeah.
And that is something
Add
that
it on the
is
pile.
will perhaps start getting louder if the reputation drops. I have natural philosophy, which you told me is a replacement for all science.
100%.
Does that mathematics?
Yeah, absolutely,
as well?
absolutely.
Can I?
Yeah, before you
Right.
roll that, I'll get Jackson to just give me what
I've
avoiding
al-
skill is.
Well, I've also got a bit of a stretch. Oh, avoiding?
Yeah, how are you
was
trying
gonna
to get out of this
say,
reputation?
Sword.
Can I like help investigate, but like make it look legitimate? You know? Can I just, or do I actually have to be?
I think that basically currently Miss Elizabeth is rushing from room to room going, it's bigger, it's smaller. I was playing hopscotch
Yeah,
and it's
gotcha.
gotten bigger. Like, and
I
then you
see.
guys are kind of getting dragged along with her. She was playing with her another like 16-year-old. Like this was kind of children playing, and you guys have been swept
No
up. in it.
worries.
So stealth,
Persuade
persuasion.
will help.
Yeah.
Will help me lighten the radar. Like, yeah, just I'm just trying to be polite. I don't
Yeah.
know. This seems to be what we're into doing now. I just do what I'm told.
No reputation hit for you. You're able to kind of, but if anything, there's a little bit of like well, she did seem quite taken with the captain. She's probably just trying to impress him. As you go rushing back and forth. So yes, the natural philosophy will absolutely apply. I'm just getting up the book where it talks about the skills because the philosophy one's really funny. It goes like, yeah, here it is. Replaces all skill. It is considered a hobby for academics to more understand God's works, as long as it doesn't contradict the holy doctrine. And the scientific method has not been invented yet. So it's very much like as good as we're getting, these sorts of things. So actually, as a reverend, it's you trying to understand how God acts on the world and to measure it in some way. That will absolutely apply
Very
to trying to
good.
measure.
Lovely. We're getting into the precursors of things like phrenology.
Woohoo! Another batshit practice.
Luckily,
Okay.
not a fumble.
No.
But no.
You can
Definitely
verify.
not a.
You tried measuring the thing and go, if only this was a head.
You're not able to get like more information. Like you're not able to like calculate like the rate of growth or anything. But you can verify it from like rudimentary mathematics. It does seem like it's longer on one side than the other, and it doesn't make sense. Stone, did you have a strategy?
Oh, just to see if it is going to like threaten the house at all. And again, bit of a stretch. I have seen buildings come down.
Yeah.
I kind of have some knowledge of making buildings come down through the use
my
of
favorite.
the best skill in the whole game.
Best skill in the
Artillery,
whole game.
baby.
Artillery.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's a structural thing. Can you see any like cracks
Yeah.
and also artillery is all
Just do-
calculating launching things. Okay.
Yeah. Is this worth lucking?
You can't see any cracks or anything. You can't see anything's breaking, and you once again, like Elizabeth, you can just see that it seems to have been about it is literally like 3 feet wider than the corridor, or longer than the corridor.
Weird.
Genuinely. At this point, and as we draw the scenario to a close for the session, people outside begin to, and basically Elizabeth also, she's interested by it but not obsessed. She will kind of lose interest and need to go back to the party. I'm going to ask all 4 of you to make a sanity, as basically through your calculations, it does seem as though this shouldn't be possible, and yet here it is.
No.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
No. I don't want to be the sane one.
Here we go.
Let's
Here we
roll
go.
that
Here we
back.
go. It's you.
Okay, everyone that failed, if you could please just lose a single point on a success, none. And as we draw the scene to a close, you all find yourselves returning to the party, perhaps to take that turn through the garden that you promised, perhaps to fill your dance card with another dance, or to find someone else interesting to talk to. But sort of wheedling through the back of your head is this discovery that Elizabeth has made, that seemingly, impossibly, the corridor is growing. Captain Stone, you're a little concerned about what that might mean for the structural stability of the house. Reverend Jennings, I think you're a man of God. You've seen his work here before. Is this a sign? Is this draw meaning from? Possible to know. And Miss Georgiana and Miss Emma, you're also concerned for what's happened to your young friend from so long ago and what it is that she's been drawn into. The Northlakes were always wealthy. They're an old family from here. They've gotten maybe a little strange to remember, and perhaps there's something to it. That is where we're going to leave this scenario as night falls and the ball enters its second phase. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to my 4 players for playing. We will be back here next week at the same time in the same place to continue our playthrough of Regency Cthulhu and see how low that reputation can go. Or high, whichever way. Hell yeah. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.